Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was reincarnated as the adventurer whose heart then the goddess of beauty couldn't touch Naruto x Freya DanMachi. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Awakening. The air tasted different. That was his first coherent thought as consciousness returned. A peculiar blend of stone dust, distant moisture, and something else entirely alien to his senses. Pain radiated through his temples as he forced his eyelids open against the insistent throbbing behind them. Sunlight lanced through narrow gaps between weathered wooden slats, painting golden streaks across an unfamiliar ceiling. Where? His voice emerged as a rasp, tongue feeling strangely clumsy within his mouth. Memories flickered like disturbed water, faces, names, places, all disjointed and fragmentary. Konoha, Hokage, Kurama, Hinata, Boruto, Himawari, war, peace, death. A life lived fully, ended with dignity, surrounded by generations he had helped nurture. Then, nothing. And now, this. The young man pushed himself upright, muscles responding with unexpected vigor despite the disorientation clouding his mind. His body felt simultaneously familiar and foreign. Lithe, powerful, yet somehow configured differently than the form he remembered inhabiting for decades. Hands came up before his eyes, unmarked by the years of battle and leadership he clearly recalled. Young hands, strong hands. What the hell is going on? He muttered, swinging his legs over the edge of the simple cot. The small room held little beyond the bed, a weathered chest, a crude washing basin. A single chair. Through the window, unfamiliar architecture rose against a brilliant blue sky, structures of stone and wood bearing no resemblance to the village he had called home. The air carried sounds of a bustling settlement, merchants hawking wares, people conversing in accents he'd never heard, the distant clang of metal on metal. He stood, finding himself clothed in simple garments, loose-fitting trousers and a nondescript tunic. Neither bore any symbol or insignia he recognized. Instinctively, his fingers sought his forehead, finding no hidiate where one had rested for most of his remembered life. A sudden wave of sensation washed through him, not chakra, not precisely, but something resonant with it. Energy that responded to his will, yet followed different patterns, different rules. When he reached for it experimentally, it answered, swirling within his core with familiar yet strange potency. Fragmented memories continued assembling themselves, a sense of purpose, of being granted an opportunity, of transition rather than ending. The specifics remained stubbornly elusive, dancing just beyond conscious grasp. I died, he stated flatly to the empty room, testing the weight of the words. I was Uzumaki Naruto. I lived a full life. I died. And now, I'm here. Each sentence felt true, resonating with certainty despite the impossibility they represented collectively. A small leather pouch rested on the chair. Inside, he found a modest collection of unfamiliar coins, a folded document, and a simple pendant, silver, in the shape of a spur. That triggered a visceral recognition. His clan symbol, though subtly different. The document contained writing in a script that should have been incomprehensible, yet somehow translated itself in his mind. Bearer: Minato Namikaze. Status: unaffiliated. Authorization: General Access, Orario Central Districts. Issued: 15th day, month of Spirit, year 1012. The name struck him forcefully, his father's name. From his previous existence. A coincidence? Or something more deliberate? Either way, it provided an anchor, an identity to navigate this bewildering situation. Minato Namikaze. He tested the name aloud. Orario. The words felt right on his tongue, as though he'd been pronouncing them his entire life. A glint caught his eye. Leaning against the wall was a weapon, not a kunai or shuriken, but a slender blade reminiscent of the ones Anbu had carried. Muscle memory guided his hand as he lifted it, the weight balanced perfectly for his grip. His body moved through a series of practiced forms without conscious thought, blades slicing air with precision that spoke of years of training he couldn't specifically recall. Well, he said to the empty room, a familiar determination settling over his features. Guess I'd better figure out what the hell is going on. Orario assaulted his senses. The city sprawled in concentric circles around a massive white tower that dominated the skyline. The structure radiated presence, both physical and metaphysical, in a way that reminded him distantly of the chakra emanating from tailed beasts. People thronged the streets, humans predominantly, but also beings with elongated ears, stocky frames, animal features, and other variations that would have been Kirastu or specialized summons in his previous world. Memory fragments c. Antinude surfacing as he navigated the unfamiliar streets. Dungeon, adventurers, monsters, gods, familia, terms and concepts settling into contextual understanding without full clarity on how he knew them. His feet carried him with surprising certainty toward a large, imposing building with a tower of its own, though modest compared to the central spire. Guild, his intuition supplied. Registration, information. Inside, administrative workers managed queues of individuals, adventurers, his mind categorized automatically, seeking services. The atmosphere reminded him distantly of the mission assignment desk in Konoha, though the specifics differed substantially. "Excuse me," he addressed a green-haired half-elven woman behind one counter. "I need information about registration." She looked up, adjusting spectacles with practiced precision. "New adventurer. You'll need to complete a status registration and receive a formal introduction to guild regulations before." "Not exactly new," he interrupted, the certainty in his voice surprising even himself. "But I need to establish formal standing." Something in his demeanor gave her pause. Her eyes, a peculiar amber shade, assessed him with professional scrutiny. "Transferring from another city, perhaps. Murin, Altina, something like that." The lie came easily, pragmatism overriding scruples. "I have combat experience but need to understand how things work specifically in Orario." She studied him a moment longer before nodding. "I'm Aina Tool, Senior Guild Advisor. Come with me to a consultation room, and we'll sort this out properly." The private room contained a desk, chairs, and walls lined with maps, charts, and diagrams depicting monsters and dungeon layouts. Aina gestured for him to sit while retrieving forms from a cabinet. "Let's start with basics. Your name." "Minato Namikaze." "Age." He hesitated, assessing his body's apparent development. 21. The number felt appropriate, though he had no specific reason for choosing it. "Place of origin." Another hesitation. "Far East," he offered vaguely. "A hidden village that wouldn't appear on your maps." Her eyebrow arched skeptically, but she noted it without comment. "Familia affiliation." "None currently." This elicited a more pronounced reaction. "An independent adventurer. That's unusual for someone your age. Most have joined a familia by now." He shrugged. "I prefer maintaining my independence." "Very well." She continued through administrative questions, completing forms with efficient precision. "Now, regarding your capability. Have you undergone the Falna blessing ritual before?" The question triggered scattered knowledge. Gods granting blessings, status inscribed on backs, abilities quantified and enhanced. "No," he answered truthfully. "I've trained extensively without it." Aina's expression registered professional concern. "Then you must understand, Mr. Namikaze, that regardless of prior experience, without a Faln, you would be at severe disadvantage in the dungeon. The monsters within aren't natural creatures, they're manifestations of the dungeon itself, and conventional training alone is insufficient." "I understand the risks," he replied, certainty underlying his words. "I'll seek a blessing when I find a deity whose interests align with mine. Until then, I'll manage." She frowned. "The guild cannot officially recommend dungeon exploration without a Falna. The mortality rate." "I'm aware," he interrupted gently. "But I need to understand this world better before making such commitments." "Somethi," ing in his tone, perhaps the weight of experience behind it, gave her pause. "At minimum, you should limit yourself to the uppermost floors. Even there, without a blessing." She sighed. "I can process your registration as an independent, but must note these advisories officially." "That's fine." The remainder of the process passed efficiently. Signing forms, receiving a guild identification tag, Ang provided with maps of approved areas, and a thorough if unnecessary lecture on dungeon safety protocols. "One last thing," Aina said as they concluded. "Where are you staying?" "The guild maintains listings of appropriate accommodations." He considered. "I haven't decided yet." "Recommendations?" For independence with limited initial resources, the hostess of fertility provides reasonable laud. Jing and serves as an information hub for adventurers. She wrote an address on a slip of paper. Mention my name. The proprietor, Mia Grand, might offer better terms. He accepted the note with a genuine smile. Thank you, Aina. You've been exceptionally helpful. Something in his expression made her cheeks color slightly. Just doing my job, Mr. Namikaze. Please check in regularly with status updates. Particularly if you insist on entering the dungeon unblessed. The entrance to the dungeon yawned before him. A massive aperture in the foundation of Babel Tower, descending into the earth with unnatural precision. Even from the threshold, he could sense the difference in atmosphere, the charged quality of the air within. Other adventurers streamed past, some in groups chatting excitedly, others alone with expressions of grim determination. Most carried weapons, wore armor of varying quality, and moved with the confident stride of those accustomed to danger. Minato, the name set, ling more comfortably in his mind with each hour, stood motionless, allowing his senses to extend beyond physical perception. The energy within him responded differently than chakra had in his previous life. Yet fundamental principles remained consistent. He could feel it circulating through pathways similar to chakra networks, responding to his will without hand signs or verbalized techniques. He stepped forward, crossing the threshold with purposeful stride. The transition was immediate. Temperature dropping several degrees, ambient sounds dampening, the quality of light shifting toward blue-tinged austerity. The walls themselves seemed to pulse with subtle vitality, as though the entire structure were a living entity. His hand drifted to the blade at his hip, not drawing it but confirming its presence. The weight of shuriken-like projectiles in concealed pouches offered additional reassurance. He'd acquired them from a merchant specializing in adventurer supplies, finding the familia. Weapons among exotic variants he didn't recognize. The first level consisted of wide corridors carved with unnatural smoothness, branching and intersecting in patterns that would be disorienting without the guild-provided map. Other adventurers dispersed throughout, some congregating in known monster-spawning locations, others pushing deeper toward connecting stairwells. Minato chose a less populated corridor, moving with silent efficiency born of lifetime combat experience. His enhanced senses detected the disturbance before visual confirmation, a section of wall bulging outward, crystalline. Particles gathering and coalescing into solid form. A creature emerged, vaguely humanoid but with proportions all wrong, skin like cobalt stone, eyes glowing with malevolent awareness. Recognition came without context. Goblin. Lowest tier monster. Minimal threat. The creature charged with surprising speed, clawed hands extended. Minato's response was pure reflex, body shifting with fluid grace. Blade clearing its sheath and completing its arc in one continuous motion. The goblin's momentum carried it forward as its head separated cleanly from its shoulders. Both parts hit the ground simultaneously, immediately beginning to disintegrate into luminescent particles. Among the dissipating remains, a small stone glinted, a magic stone, his memory supplied, the concentrated essence of the monster and the dungeon's primary resource. He collected it automatically, continuing deeper with heightened awareness. More monsters appeared, individually and in small groups. Each encounter followed similar patterns. Creatures attacking with instinctive aggression, Minato responding with economical precision, bodies dissolving into particles leaving only magic stones as evidence of their existence. The ease of these victories felt almost disappointing. His body moved with practiced efficiency that surpassed mere muscle memory, suggesting combat experience beyond what a normal 21-year-old could possess. The energy within him remained largely untapped, barely stirring despite continuous exertion. He descended to the second floor, then the third, encountering progressively larger monster groups. A pack of needle rabbits, creatures resembling their namesake but with vicious spines and unnatural speed, provided the first genuine challenge, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. Minato's response revealed capabilities beyond conventional swordsmanship. His body blurred with acceleration that would have impressed even seasoned jonin from his previous life. The blade became nearly invisible, intersecting multiple attack vectors with precision that left no opening for the creature's coordinated assault. When stillness returned, a dozen dissolving corpses surrounded him. Not a single spine had penetrated his defenses. A low whistle drew his attention to a group of adventurers who had witnessed the exchange from a corridor junction. That was something else, one commented. A stocky human with practical armor and a battle axe. You with Loki familia, or maybe Freya's. Independent, Minato replied simply. Their expressions registered surprise, then skepticism. Solo on the 3rd floor with moves like that. Which god did you piss off to go independent? He offered a noncommittal shrug. Haven't found the right fit yet. The group's leader, a woman with prosthetical leathers and twin short swords, studied him with professional assessment. Well, whoever snags you is getting a bargain. Those weren't standard sword techniques. Family style, he answered, the half-truth coming naturally. Further conversation was interrupted by rumbling from a connecting passage, the unmistakable sound of larger creatures approaching. The adventurer group shifted formation instinctively, readying weapons. War shadows, the leader identified. A full pack by the sound. You might want to clear out if you're solo, pretty boy. These hit harder than the small fry. Song. Ething sparked in Minato, a familiar competitive spirit, dormant but not forgotten. I'll manage, he replied, moving toward the sound rather than away. The creatures that emerged resembled animated RMOR more than living beings, humanoid forms of deepest black with glowing red eyes, wielding crude weapons formed from their own substance. They moved with disturbing coordination, immediately identifying and prioritizing threats. What followed demonstrated the difference between a capable adventurer and something else entirely. Minato became pure motion, not simply fast but efficient, each move NT flowing into the next without wasted energy. The blade danced through defensive formations as though they didn't exist, finding vulnerabilities that trained adventurers would struggle to identify. More significantly, he began channeling the energy within him intentionally. It wasn't chakra manipulation as he'd known it, but the underlying principles translated: focus, intent, and precise application. The energy responded by enhancing his already formidable physical capabilities, creating afterimages that confused the monster's targeting instincts. When he finally stilled, the corridor contained only dissolving remnants and wide-eyed adventurers. What the actual hell, breathed the axe wielder. That wasn't just technique. What kind of magic was that? Minato collected the magic stones methodically, buying time to formulate an appropriate response. Not magic exactly, energy manipulation through physical conditioning. The leader's eyes narrowed with professional interest. Which familia teaches that approach? I've seen enhancement magic, but nothing that integrated so seamlessly with weapon techniques. As I said, family style. He straightened, pocketing the stones. I should continue. Good hunting to you. He left them speculating, proceeding deeper with purposeful stride. The encounter had provided valuable insights, confirmation that his abilities, while differently manifested, remained exceptional in this world's context. The energy responded differently than chakra had, yet fundamental principles of manipulation remained viable. More importantly, he'd begun reconstituting his identity, not merely Naruto transplanted into a new setting, nor entirely this new person called Minato, but a synthesis incorporating elements of both. The memories of his previous life provided foundation and context, while this new existence offered fresh perspective unencumbered by past burdens. He continued exploring methodically, mapping mental pathways through the dungeon's upper levels while assessing monster capabilities and resource distribution. By the time he ascended to the surface hours later, his collection pouch contained substantially more magic stones than a typical novice adventurer could acquire in days. The hostess of fertility stood 3 stories tall, its architecture reminiscent of Northern European taverns from Earth's history, sturdy timber frame, whitewashed walls, steeply pitched roof, and prominently displayed signage featuring a curvaceous female silhouette. The establishment radiated welcoming energy alongside a subtle undercurrent of controlled rowdiness, suggesting its dual nature as adventurer gathering place and functional business. Minato approached as afternoon transitioned toward evening, the fatigue from dungeon exploration registering as pleasant exertion rather than debilitating exhaustion. The interior welcomed him with amber lighting, savory aromas, and the controlled chaos of dozens of conversations occurring simultaneously. A mountain of a woman dominated the space behind the bar, towering height, powerful build, and piercing eyes that missed nothing. Mia Grand, his memory supplied without clear context for how he knew. The proprietor. She noted his entrance immediately, assessing him with the practiced eye of someone who had evaluated thousands of adventurers. New face, she declared rather than asked. What'll it be? Lodging, meals, and information, he replied directly, approaching the bar with casual confidence. Ain't a tool at the guild suggested your establishment. Her eyebrow arched slightly. Did she now? Unusual for that one to direct newbies here. We're not exactly the cheapest option. I'm not exactly a newbie. He placed his collection pouch on the counter, the weight of a cc-emulated magic stones making a satisfying thunk. Just new to Orario specifically. Mia's practiced fingers assessed the pouch's contents without opening it. Upper floors, but efficient work. Traveling adventurer then, something like that. She studied him more carefully, noting the quality of his movement, the weathered condition of his blade despite its simple design, the alertness in his eyes. 30 Valis nightly for a private room, meals extra but discounted for residents, information free with sufficient drink purchases. Acceptable. He extracted the appropriate coins from his meager funds. As a month in advance possible. I prefer establishing stable arrangements. This elicited a rare look of approval. Most adventurers live day to day. Planning ahead suggests either experience or good sense. Possibly both. She accepted the payment, producing a heavy iron key from beneath the counter. 3rd floor, East Wing, Room 7. Shared bathing facilities at the end of the hall. Meals served from dawn till midnight. House rules posted inside your door. Read them, follow them, or find yourself personally acquainted with how I earned the nickname, Mamma Mia. He accepted the key with a respectful nod. Understood. Is it possible to sell magic stones here, or should I return to the guild? Sir handles exchanges for regular patrons. She'll be serving tables tonight. Gray hair, innocent face. Don't let it fool you. Mia gestured toward the dining area. Get yourself settled, then come down for a proper meal. Can't evaluate new residents on empty stomachs. E-room proved simple but well maintained, similar to his temporary accommodations but with better furnishings, cleaner conditions, and subtle touches that transformed mere shelter into livable space. He promised rules listed on parchment were straightforward. No fighting inside, damages paid in full, respect staff and other patrons, settle accounts promptly, and various common sense provisions any reasonable establishment would enforce. After securing his limited possessions, Minato returned downstairs to find the tavern considerably more populated. Adventurers of various races occupied most tables. Conversations ranging from excited recounting of dungeon exploits to serious strategic discussions to drunken boasting. He selected a corner table offering good sightlines and minimal exposure. A habit so deeply ingrained it required no conscious thought. A waitress approached promptly. Not the sir that Mia had mentioned, but a taller woman with pointed ears and delicate features marred by a subtle scar across one cheek. New resident, she inquired, tone professionally neutral. I'm Ryu. What can I bring you? Whatever meal represents the kitchen's strengths, he replied. And information, if you're willing to provide it. The elven woman's expression remained impassive, but something in her posture shifted subtly, the almost imperceptible adjustment of someone reassessing an initial impression. The lamb stew is particularly good tonight. As for information, that depends entirely on what you're seeking. Context mostly. I'm familiar with adventuring generally but new to Orario specifically. Guild resources cover essentials but lack practical perspective. She nodded once. I'll bring your meal, then perhaps some insights when my duties permit. The stew, when it arrived, proved exceptional. Rich flavors balanced perfectly, vegetables maintaining ideal texture, meat tender without disintegration. Minato ate methodically, absorbing the conversations around him while organizing the day's observations into coherent understanding. Orario operated as a city-state built entirely around the dungeon and its resources. Adventurers served as the primary economic engine, extracting magic stones that powered everything from lighting to transportation to manufacturing. Familias functioned as combination religious orders, guilds, and extended families, God selecting a.n.d. blessing followers who then operated under their aegis and philosophical approach. The power dynamics seemed complex. Major familias controlled territory, resources, and political influence, while smaller groups carved out specialized niches. Independence existed but remained unusual, typically consisting of experienced adventurers who had left their familias for various reasons, often controversial. Contemplating the greater mysteries of dungeon exploration, a feminine voice interrupted his analysis. The gray-haired waitress Mia had identified as Sir stood beside his table, expression somewhere between professional courtesy and personal curiosity. Up close, she projected an aura of deliberate innocence that didn't quite conceal sharper intelligence beneath. Just absorbing the environment, he replied. Yours, sir. Mia mentioned you handle magic stone exchanges. Among other responsibilities, she settled into the chair opposite without invitation. New residents are always interesting, especially ones who arrive alone, display combat proficiency, and observe everything while revealing nothing. Her directness surprised him, though he maintained neutral expression. Is that unusual here? Unusual enough to pique curiosity. Her smile contained genuine warmth alongside calculated assessment. Most adventurers can't stop talking about themselves. The quiet ones typically have the most interesting stories. Quote, or perhaps they're simply private individuals. Perhaps. She produced a small ledger from her apron pocket. Shall we conduct business? I understand you have stones to exchange. The transaction proceeded efficiently, Sir demonstrating surprising expertise in evaluating quality and quantity without formal measuring equipment. The resulting sum exceeded Minato's expectations, suggesting his instinctive dungeon approach had proven more efficient than standard methods. Impressive for upper-floor exploration, she commented while counting coins. Especially for someone working alone. Most adventurers require parties to achieve similar results. He accepted the payment without comment, though her observation confirmed his own assessment regarding relative capability. The energy system of this world differed from chakra manipulation, yet his lifetime of combat experience translated effectively regardless. As Sir departed to serve other customers, Ryu returned. Carrying a steaming mug, mint tea, she explained, placing it before him. My duties allow a brief respite. What specific information were you seeking? Practical assessment of familia dynamics, he replied. The guild provides organizational structures but not actual power relationships or philosophical approaches. The elven woman considered him carefully before responding. An unusual starting point for a new arrival. Most adventurers concern themselves with dungeon logistics first. The dungeon itself is straightforward. Monsters emerge, adventurers defeat them, resources are collected. The social structures surrounding that process create greater complexity. Something in his assessment earned a fractional softening of her professional distance. A perspective suggesting experience, she settled into the chair Sir had vacated. The major familias currently include Loki, Freya, Ganesha, and Hephaestus, each with distinct approaches. Loki emphasizes exploration and achievement, fielding the most accomplished dungeon parties. Freya selects members based on criteria only she fully comprehends, though beauty and strength feature prominently. Ganesha maintains civic order, functioning effectively as Orario's police force. Hephaestus produces the finest equipment through master craftsmen. Minato absorbed this information, fitting it within the framework he'd constructed. And the gods themselves, how directly do they involve themselves in operations? It varies significantly. Some micromanage daily activities, others provide general direction leaving implementation to trusted captains, and a few simply enjoy the entertainment their familia provides. Ryu's expression suggested personal opinions she chose not to voice. The restriction against using divine powers directly leaves most gods dependent on their blessed children for achieving objectives. Creating a symbiotic relationship, Minato observed. Gods provide blessing and direction. Adventurers provide capability and entertainment. A succinct assessment. She studied him with increased interest. You speak like someone with formal education, yet carry yourself as a combatant. I've had opportunity for both. The deliberate vagueness came naturally, neither lie nor full disclosure. Further conversation was interrupted by increased activity near the entrance, a group of well-equipped adventurers arriving with the boisterous energy of successful expedition members. Their armor bore consistent insignia, stylized flames in crimson. Hestia Familia, Ryu identified without prompting. Relatively new but rapidly establishing reputation through their captain's achievements. Minato observed the group dynamics with professional interest, the white-haired young Man at center, clearly their leader despite unassuming demeanor, others orbiting him with varying degrees of deference and familiarity. They moved with the coordinated awareness of a unit accustomed to protecting each other's vulnerabilities. They operate effectively as a cohesive unit, he noted. Ryu's expression reflected grudging approval. Their approach emphasizes mutual support rather than individual achievement. Unorthodox but increasingly validated by results. The observation triggered resonance with his previous life, Naruto's emphasis on bonds and teamwork over singular prowess. The philosophy had served him well as both shinobi and Hokage, creating strength through connection rather than isolation. An approach with merit, he commented. Though perhaps challenging to maintain as organizations grow beyond personal relationships. Ryu's eyebrow arched slightly, an astute observation few adventurers consider. Most focus on immediate strength rather than sustainable structures. She rose gracefully. Duty calls. Perhaps we'll continue this conversation another evening. He watched her return to work, noting the subtle difference in her interaction with him compared to other patrons, a professional respect not automatically granted but apparently earned through their brief exchange. The realization provided satisfaction alongside practical advantage. Competent information sources would prove invaluable in navigating this new existence. From her vantage point high in Babel Tower, Freya observed the city spread beneath her like a living tapestry. Divine perception allowed her to perceive souls directly, glowing essences ranging from dull embers to brilliant flames, each unique in color, intensity, and pattern. After millennia, few captured her interest for more than passing moments. Lady Freya, Ottar's rumbling voice interrupted her contemplation. The Boaz stood respectfully at threshold to her private chamber, massive frames somehow managing to project deference despite overwhelming physical presence. The individual you noted has returned from the dungeon. She turned, silver hair flowing like liquid moonlight around ethereally beautiful features. The independent adventurer. Where is he now? The hostess of fertility. He's taken lodging there. A smile curved perfect lips. Interesting. I sensed something unusual about him even at distance. His movements through the city weren't those of someone unfamiliar with combat. The reports confirm your assessment, Ottar acknowledged. Guild registration identified him as Minato Namikaze, origin unspecified. He entered the dungeon unblessed yet reached the 5th floor without apparent difficulty. Combat observers described his techniques as unorthodox but exceptionally effective. Freya's interest deepened. Unblessed adventurers typically couldn't progress beyond 2nd or 3rd floors without extreme caution and extensive preparation. Reaching the 5th while maintaining combat efficiency suggested capabilities far exceeding typical parameters. I wish to observe him more directly, she decided. Arrange discreet monitoring of his activities. I want comprehensive assessment before making any approach. As you wish. Ottar hesitated, uncharacteristic for the normally decisive captain. There's something else. The Gulliver brothers encountered him briefly. They described his soul appearance as unusual. This captured Freya's complete attention. Soul appearance remained consistent regardless of physical development or status progression. Variations occurred only through profound transformation or divine intervention. Unusual how? She demanded. Dual aspected, according to Alan. Primary luminance golden orange with secondary crimson patterning. They described it as resembling a normal soul with something else contained within or merged with it. Freya's expression shifted from interest to genuine excitement, a rare response from the normally composed goddess. Truly exceptional. Such configurations typically indicate individuals who've undergone profound spiritual transformation or carry divine influence. Shall I arrange immediate recruitment approach? Ottar inquired. No. Her smile carried anticipation normally reserved for her most promising children. I wish to handle this personally. Something so unique deserves direct attention. Morning found Minato seated cross-legged on his room's floor, eyes closed, breathing regulated to precise rhythm. The meditation practice had translated from his previous life, providing similar benefits despite the different energy system. His awareness extended throughout his body, tracing pathways of power that resembled chakra networks without being identical. The fundamental NCE became increasingly apparent through careful exploration. Chakra had represented personal energy, physical and spiritual aspects combined through training and willpower. This world's energy flowed differently, external power channeled into internal reservoirs through divine blessing, then shaped by individual attributes and abilities. Without formal blessing, his capabilities derived solely from physical conditioning, combat experience, and whatever anomalous essence had transferred during reincarnation. The latter manifested as a distinct presence, not Kurama's consciousness, but perhaps residual energy from decades of containing the nine tails. A sharp knock interrupted his analysis. Rising fluidly, he opened the door to find Ryu, now dressed in more practical attire rather than serving uniform. "Good morning," she greeted formally. "Mia suggested you might appreciate orientation to Orario's merchant district before today's dungeon exploration. New residents often overpay significantly through unfamiliarity with local practices." The offer represented both practical assistance and information-gathering opportunity, likely Mia's intention. "I'd appreciate the guidance," he acknowledged, collecting his blade and securing it at his hip. They departed through the tavern's kitchen entrance, Ryu navigating morning crowds with practiced efficiency. Her movements contained the same measured precision he'd noted previously, suggesting combat training beyond what typical service staff would require. "You've been an adventurer," he observed as they walked. She neither confirmed nor denied, though something in her posture shifted subtly. "What suggests that conclusion?" "Movement patterns, spatial awareness, weapon calluses not fully faded from your hands." Her expression remained neutral, but assessment in her eyes intensified. "Observant. Yes, I've experienced dungeon exploration firsthand. It provides useful perspective for advising current adventurers." The Archant district revealed itself as a complex ecosystem of specialized vendors, quality ranges, and pricing structures. Ryu directed him toward establishments offering reasonable value rather than premium services or dubious bargains. Her recommendations focused on practical necessities, equipment maintenance supplies, basic potions, preserved rations for extended dungeon exploration. Most novice adventurers waste resources on expensive equipment upgrades before developing skills to utilize them effectively, she explained while examining grinding stones at a tool merchant's stall. "Better to master fundamentals with adequate tools than struggle with exceptional equipment beyond current capability. A philosophy applicable beyond adventuring," Minato noted, selecting items with deliberate economy. Their circuit continued through specialized sections, armor fitted to various races, weapons crafted for different combat styles, magical implements whose functions he couldn't immediately determine. Throughout, Ryu provided context without excessive explanation, respecting his evident competence while filling knowledge gaps. As they neared the central plaza, a disturbance attracted attention. Raised voices and gathering onlookers indicating potential conflict. Ryu tensed subtly, clearly considering whether to avoid the situation entirely. Minato moved forward instead, curiosity overriding caution. The confrontation involved adventurers, a smaller group wearing uniform insignia facing a larger contingent whose matched equipment suggested organized familia despite lack of visible symbols. "Protection racket," Ryu murmured, closing distance to remain within conversational range. The unmarked group targets smaller familias, demanding payment for safe passage through territories they don't legitimately control. The situation's dynamics crystallized immediately. Intimidation tactics against those perceived as vulnerable, a strategy unchanged across worlds and lifetimes. The smaller group maintained dignity despite clear disadvantage, their leader, a young woman with distinctive blue hair, standing firm against increasingly aggressive posturing. "Shouldn't the guild prevent such activities?" Minato inquired, assessing tactical positions automatically. "They lack resources to monitor all interactions," Ryu replied. "And technically, no laws prevent adventurers from occupying territory unless registered as safe zones." The confrontation escalated, the racket leader grabbing the blue-haired woman's collar, voices rising as threats became explicit. Surrounding adventurers watched without intervention, unwilling to involve themselves in others' conflicts. Something stirred within Minato, a familiar sense of injustice that had defined Naruto's core personality. Without conscious decision, he moved forward, closing distance with deceptive casualness that belied purposeful intent. "Problem here?" he inquired, voice carrying calm authority that drew immediate attention. The racket leader, A burly human with elaborate armor suggesting greater status than actual capability, snorted dismissively. Private business. Move along. Looks more like harassment, Minato observed, positioning himself subtly between groups. Perhaps reconsider your approach. Who the hell are you supposed to be? The man released his grip on the woman's collar, focusing Fu's attention on the perceived interference. Another stray dog from this pathetic excuse for a familia. Just someone suggesting a more productive use of everyone's time. Minato maintained relaxed posture despite the larger man's increasing agitation. These adventurers clearly aren't interested in your offer. Professional courtesy suggests accepting rejection gracefully. The racketeer's expression darkened. Professional courtesy. I'll show you professional response to interference. His hand dropped to weapon hilt with telegraphed intention. What followed occurred too quickly for most observers to process fully. The man's blade cleared its sheath halfway before Minato moved, not simply stepping forward but seemingly teleporting into immediate proximity. No weapon was drawn, no dramatic technique employed. Just precise application of force against vulnerable anatomical points. The racketeer collapsed, breath driven from lungs, equilibrium disrupted through targeted pressure to specific nerves. His followers stood momentarily paralyzed by the sudden reversal before reaching for their own weapons. I wouldn't, Minato advised calmly. Your leader will recover shortly with nothing damaged except pride. Escalating guarantees more significant consequences for everyone involved. Something in his tone, absolute certainty rather than mere threat, gave them pause. After tense moments, one stepped forward to help their gasping leader to his feet. This isn't finished, the man wheezed, attempting to salvage dignity through bravado. It could be, Minato suggested. There are plenty of legitimate opportunities in Orario without resorting to intimidation tactics. Consider this a fortuitous moment to reconsider approaches. The group retreated with muttered threats that lacked conviction. The confrontation concluded as quickly as it had begun. The blue-haired adventurer approached with evident relief mixed with wariness. Thank you for your intervention, she offered formally. Though we could have handled the situation ourselves. Of course, Minato acknowledged without argument. Just offering momentary assistance between fellow adventurers. Her expression suggested she recognized diplomatic response rather than genuine agreement. I'm Lily Erde, captain of Soma Familia. May I know who to thank properly? Minato Namikaze. Independent. This elicited raised eyebrows. Independent with those capabilities. Unusual combination. Further conversation was interrupted by Ryu's reappearance at his side. The elven woman had observed the entire exchange without intervention. Her assessment now containing additional layers of professional evaluation. We should continue, she suggested. The potions shop closes early today. They departed with brief farewells. Though Minato noted the speculative expressions following their progress. The incident would generate discussion, potentially complicating his preference for observational adjustment to Orario's dynamics. That was unnecessary risk, Ryu commented once they'd reached sufficient distance for private conversation. Perhaps, he acknowledged, though allowing intimidation tactics to succeed unchallenged creates progressive deterioration in community standards. She studied him with renewed interest. An unusual perspective for an adventurer. Most concern themselves solely with personal advancement. Different backgrounds foster different priorities. Their circuit completed at the hostess of fertility, Ryu departing with formal acknowledgement that nonetheless contained subtle indicators of increased respect. Minato proceeded to his room, organizing purchased supplies while analyzing the morning's events. The confrontation had provided valuable insights, confirmation at his combat capabilities remained exceptional even without divine blessing, observation of familia dynamics in practical application, and demonstration that his instinctive ethical framework had transferred intact despite reincarnation. More significantly, it reinforced his developing identity synthesis. The response had been neither purely Naruto's impulsive righteousness nor entirely the calculated intervention of someone named Minato. Instead, it represented integration, compassionate intent executed with tactical precision, moral certainty tempered by strategic awareness. Perhaps this presented the purpose behind his unprecedented situation, the opportunity to combine wisdom gained through a completed lifetime with fresh perspective unburdened by accumulated obligations and expectations. The potential felt simultaneously daunting and exhilarating. Dash dash dash. Freya stood motionless, silver eyes wide with unprecedented shock. She had approached the situation with casual confidence born of absolute certainty. Throughout millennia, no mortal had ever resisted her divine charm, the ability to inspire instant devotion through mere presence. Even other deities found her influence nearly irresistible when directly applied. Yet the golden-haired adventurer continued conversing with the elven waitress, showing no indication whatsoever that divinity personified stood merely paces away. No widened eyes, no suspended breath, no stumbling words or desperate need to approach. Nothing. For the first time in countless centuries, Freya experienced genuine surprise. She had chosen to serve personally after reports described the independent adventurer's unusual capabilities and soul configuration. Disguised in modest attire that concealed her divine beauty, though not its fundamenta. Influence, she had positioned herself strategically in the hostess of fertility to assess him directly. His physical appearance had proven striking though not extraordinary by Orario's standards, Den hair falling in casual disarray above features combining masculine strength with almost delicate refinement, body moving with unconscious grace that spoke of absolute physical mastery. Attractive certainly, but she had seen countless beautiful mortals throughout existence. His soul, however, justified every report and exceeded expectations. The dual-aspected configuration described by her Kai Dren represented radical understatement. What she perceived resembled a normal soul, already exceptionally bright, overlaid or infused with something else entirely. Not divine essence precisely, but power approaching that magnitude. Contained and integrated rather than merely adjacent. More shocking still, it projected a fundamental resistance she'd never encountered, as though operating according to different metaphysical principles than those governing normal souls. Her charm simply failed to engage, finding no purchase within his spiritual architecture. Ottar materialized beside her, his Sive presence somehow avoiding notice from surrounding patrons. Is something wrong, Lady Freya? You seem disturbed. He's immune, she whispered, excitement replacing initial shock. Completely, inherently immune to divine charm. Not resistant, not protected, fundamentally outside its influence. Her faithful captain processed this impossibility with characteristic stoicism. What would you have us do? Freya's perfect lips curved into a smile containing equal parts fascination and predatory anticipation. Nothing yet. I need to understand this phenomenon completely before taking action. Her eyes never left the golden-haired adventurer as he bid farewell to the elven woman and departed toward the dungeon entrance. This changes everything, Ottar, she continued, voice barely above whisper. For the first time since descending, I've encountered something genuinely unexpected. A soul I cannot simply have through divine privilege. A problematic development, he inquired, misinterpreting her intensity. Quite the opposite. Her smile deepened, eyes gleaming with passion that transcended mere divine caprice. The most exquisite gift imaginable, genuine challenge. Someone who must be won rather than simply claimed. She watched until Minato disappeared from view, her expression settling into determination that would have concerned even her most devoted followers had they witnessed it directly. The adventurer whose heart even the goddess of beauty cannot touch, she murmured. How absolutely perfect. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Echoes of the Past. The deeper levels of the dungeon pulsed with a different energy. By the 10th floor, the artificial illumination of the upper levels gave way to bioluminescent fungi and crystalline formations that bathed everything in an eerie blue-green glow. The air felt thicker, carrying mineral scents and the faint metallic tang of monster residue. Minato moved silently through the winding passageways, each step deliberate and efficient. A week of methodical exploration had familiarized him with the dungeon's general patterns, monster-spawning tendencies, structural formations, resource distribution. More importantly, it had provided opportunity to assess how his capabilities translated to this world's metaphysical framework. The results proved both fascinating and occasionally frustrating. The energy within him responded differently than chakra had in his previous existence. It followed similar principles of concentration and direction but lacked the structured manipulation techniques he'd mastered as Naruto. No shadow clones, no Rasengan, at least not in their familiar forms. Yet compensation came through unexpected avenues. His physical attributes exceeded even his peak performance as a shinobi, strength, speed, and sensory acuity all operating at levels that would have impressed even Gai-sensei. More significantly, the residual energy from Kurama manifested as exceptional regenerative capability and resistance to damage. A disturbance ahead interrupted his analysis, the distinctive sounds of monsters gathering in unusual numbers. He paused, extending awareness beyond normal sensory limits. Multiple C.G. natures registered, larger than typical 10th floor denizens, moving with coordinated purpose rather than random aggression. Irregular spawning, he murmured, drawing his blade. The phenomenon occur, read rarely according to guild information, producing monster groups with atypical behaviors and capabilities. He advanced cautiously, maintaining stealth despite the natural impulse toward direct confrontation. The passage widened into a circular chamber whose ceiling disappeared into darkness above. Within, hellhounds, wolf-like creatures with obsidian fur and ember eyes, gathered around larger specimens bearing distinctive bone-white protrusions. Pack structure, his mind catalogued automatically, with alphas directing subordinates. More concerning was their behavior, not simply waiting for PREY but actively organizing defensive positions around something at the chamber's center. The object gleamed with pulsing crimson energy, its crystalline structure unlike standard dungeon formations. Minato assessed options methodically. Conventional adventurers would retreat to report the anomaly, especially when operating solo. Strategic withdrawal represented the objectively rational choice. Why? Instinct pulled him forward, not mere combat impulse but deeper recognition. The crystal's energy signature resonated with something inside him, triggering fragmented memories that flickered at consciousness's edge. Sealed away. Always finding ways to return. Responsibility to contain. The fragmentary thoughts carried emotional weight beyond their content, determination, resolve. The certainty that some threats required confrontation rather than avoidance. Decision crystallized. He needed closer examination of that formation, regardless of guardian presence. Strategy formed automatically: divide attention, create openings, maintain mobility. Tactics that had served him through countless battles across 2 lifetimes. His fingers found small metal objects within concealed pouches, not kunai precisely, but similar throwing implements purchased from specialized outfitters. With practiced precision, he launched several toward the chamber's perimeter, each striking crystalline formations with calculated force. The resulting sounds echoed throughout the space, drawing immediate attention from the Hellhound pack. They responded with coordinated efficiency, Alpha's King commands that sent subordinates investigating different directions while maintaining core defensive position. Minato moved during the initial distraction, crossing open ground with blinding speed. Before scaling a vertical wall using handholds invisible to casual observation. Positioning himself in shadowed recesses above, he prepared the next phase. The Hellhounds, confusion provided essential information. They prioritized perimeter security over direct crystal defense, suggesting protocols beyond instinctive aggression. Such behavior indicated greater intelligence than standard monsters typically displayed. His next actions unfolded with choreographed precision. Additional projectiles targeted specific formations to create sequential distractions, each drawing predetermined respawns that incrementally thinned defensive positioning. When sufficient opening presented itself, he dropped silently into motion. The world slowed around him as he channeled energy through physical pathways. Not quite the flash technique his father had mastered, but similar principles applied. Concentration of power to enhance neural processing and muscular response beyond normal limitations. NCE collapsed between positions as he blurred through defensive gaps. The first Hellhound died before registering his presence, blade severing spinal connection with surgical precision. The second and third fell in rapid succession, bodies dissolving into luminescent particles before hitting the ground. No wasted movement, no flashy techniques, just lethal efficiency born of lifetime experience. The pack alphas responded with preternatural awareness, abandoning investigation to converge on the genuine threat. They moved with surprising speed, coordinating angles of approach to eliminate escape options. Under normal circumstances, such tactics might have succeeded against even exceptional adventurers. Minato wasn't normal. As the first alpha lunged, jaws agape with flame gathering at its throat. He didn't retreat or defend conventionally. Instead, he stepped forward, inside the creature's attack range where its momentum became liability rather than advantage. His blade described a perfect arc through the monster's chest while his body twisted to avoid retaliatory strikes from the second alpha approaching from behind. The chamber erupted into frenzied combat, hellhounds attacking from multiple vectors. Minato responding with fluid movements that seemed to anticipate actions before they occurred. His fighting style incorporated elements from multiple disciplines without adhering to any standard form. Sword techniques blended with open-hand strikes, acrobatic evasions complemented by precision counters. Throughout, energy flowed through pathways similar to chakra networks but with different expression. It manifested not through external techniques but internal enhancement, accelerated perception, heightened reflexes, physical capabilities exceeding normal parameters. Not jutsu as he'd known it, but fundamentally similar principles applied through different metaphysical framework. When stillness finally returned, dissolved monster remnants drifted through air like luminescent snow. Minato stood unscathed at the chamber's center, breathing controlled despite extended exertion. Before him, the crystal formation pulsed with rhythmic energy that seemed almost responsive to his presence. He approached cautiously, senses extended beyond physical perception. The crystal's structure appeared natural yet impossibly regular, its facets refracting light in patterns T. Had created complex geometric projections across surrounding surfaces. More significantly, it radiated energy with distinctive signature, not merely magical power as this world defined it, but something fundamentally different. His hand extended toward the formation without conscious decision, drawn by recognition beyond rational analysis. As fingers approached crystalline surface, energy tendrils extended outward like seeking vines. Connecting with his own essence in resonant harmony. The world disappeared. He stood atop the Hokage monument, looking out over Konoha as sunset painted buildings in amber and gold. The village had changed dramatically during his lifetime, expanded boundaries, modernized architecture, technological integration that would have seemed impossible during his childhood. Admiring your legacy, old man. Kurama's rumbling voice held the comfortable familiarity of decades-long partnership. Just remembering how far we've come, Naruto replied, feeling the weight of years in joints that no longer moved with youthful ease. Sometimes I still expect to see the village as it was when we were young. The fox materialized beside him, translucent form visible only to his perception. Nostalgia is a luxury for those who survive long enough to indulge it. Naruto smiled, lines crinkling around eyes that had witnessed both tragedy and triumph throughout his extended lifetime. Never thought I'd hear you waxing philosophical. Your sentimental nature infected me over the decades, Kurama grumbled without genuine irritation. A regrettable side effect of our arrangement. They stood in companionable silence, watching darkness gradually claim the village they had both, in different ways, come to cherish. We're reaching the end, aren't we? Naruto finally asked, voicing the awareness that had grown increasingly certain in recent months. Kurama didn't pretend misunderstanding. Your body is failing despite my influence. The seal has maintained equilibrium for decades beyond normal human lifespan, but even chakra has limits against mortality. I'm not afraid, Naruto stated with simple conviction. We fulfilled our purpose. The next generation is ready. As ready as any humans ever are, the fox acknowledged. Your descendants carry potential, if not your specific hard-headedness. Another comfortable silence fell between them, unbroken until stars appeared overhead. What happens to you, when I'm gone? Naruto finally asked. The question gave Kurama pause, massive form shifting as though considering possibilities he'd avoided examining. The conventional answer would be rebirth elsewhere, as Biju have always done when their Jinchuriki perish. But our connection transcended conventional parameters decades ago. The seal evolved beyond its original design through your stubborn insistence on treating me as partner rather than prisoner. The fox's expression shifted into something almost contemplative. There are no precedents for what happens when Biju and host achieve true symbiosis. Naruto nodded, understanding the implication. We'll find out together, then. Like always. Like always, Kurama agreed. Crimson eyes reflecting starlight as they faced whatever came next with the same unity that had defined their shared existence. Reality reasserted itself with jarring suddenness. Minato found himself kneeling before the crystal, hand pressed against its surface while energy pulsed between them in visible waves. The connection broke as he pulled back, leaving momentary emptiness like phantom limb sensation. The memory had possessed unusual clarity, not the fragmented impressions he'd experienced previously, but complete recollection with emotional context intact. Naruto's final conversation with Kurama, acknowledging the approaching end of their shared journey. Yet something felt incomplete, as though the memory represented only portion of significant exchange. What had followed that conversation? What had happened when Naruto finally passed from his original existence? The crystal's pulsing slowed gradually, its brilliance fading to subdued glow. Whatever connection had triggered the memory seemed temporarily exhausted, leaving questions without immediate answers. Minato collected the unusually large magic stones left by the Hellhound Alphas. Then extracted a fragment of the crystal formation for further examination. Its energy signature had diminished but remained distinctive, different from standard dungeon materials in ways he couldn't immediately quantify. As he navigated back toward upper levels, understanding crystallized gradually. The resonance between the formation and his internal energy suggested connection beyond coincidence. Something within the dungeon recognized the essence he carried, remnants of Kurama's power that had somehow transferred during reincarnation. More significantly, the memory revealed critical context for his current existence. Naruto and Kurama had faced death together, their partnership transcending conventional host-biju relationships. Whatever had followed apparently resulted in his rent situation, memories and essence transferred to new existence rather than conventional reincarnation. The implications required careful consideration, preferably in more secure environment than mid-level dungeon passageways. The hostess of fertility hummed with evening activity as Minato entered, conversations and laughter creating comfortable background cacophony. He selected his usual corner table with good sightlines and minimal exposure, nodding acknowledgement to Mia behind the bar. Ryu appeared promptly, placing water without being asked. Successful exploration, she inquired, tone professionally neutral despite evident assessment of his condition. Informative, he replied. The usual meal would be appreciated. She nodded, turning to leave before hesitating. You encountered something unusual. Your energy signature is disturbed. The observation caught him off guard. Few individuals in Orario demonstrated sensitivity to such subtle variations, particularly from someone unblessed. You can sense that. Something flickered in her expression, caution warring with tentative trust. Former adventurers retain certain sensitivities, she offered without elaboration. Whatever you encountered was significant. He considered his response carefully. Instinct suggested Ryu might provide valuable insights, yet full disclosure felt premature without better understanding his own situation. I found crystalline formations on the 10th floor that reacted unusually to proximity. The guild would likely value information if similar phenomena have been reported. Her eyes narrowed slightly, recognizing selective disclosure but choosing not to press further. The dungeon occasionally produces anomalies, particularly following irregular events. Documentation helps identify patterns. She departed to place his order, professional demeanor intact despite the brief exchange's underlying tensions. Minato extracted the crystal fragment from secure inner pocket, examining it discreetly beneath the table. Its energy had stabilized into dormant state, no longer pulsing but retaining distinctive signature. The material itself resembled standard magic stone in Co.M position but with structural differences visible even to naked eye, more complex crystalline lattice, unusual color gradients within its matrix. Interesting souvenir. The voice startled him despite enhanced awareness. Sir had approached without triggering his normally infallible proximity detection. The gray-haired waitress slid into the seat opposite, expression combining curiosity with something sharper. Most adventurers bring back magic stones, not dungeon fragments. He pocketed the crystal smoothly. Just an unusual specimen. The coloration caught my attention. Of course. Her smile. Suggested she recognized evasion without taking offense. The dungeon produces countless curiosities. Collectors pay handsomely for distinctive examples. Ryu returned with his meal, lamb stew that had become his standard evening fare. Its rich flavors consistently satisfying after dungeon exertion. She placed it before him with precise movements, gaze flickering briefly toward Sir before returning to Minato. If you're interested in unusual dungeon materials, you might consider consulting Tsubaki Colbrand, she suggested. Hephaestus Familia's captain has extensive experience with exotic components and their applications. The recommendation contained more than simple information, an implied connection or introduction if desired. I appreciate the suggestion. Perhaps tomorrow, if she's available for consultation, I can arrange an introduction, Sir offered, her helpfulness feeling simultaneously genuine and calculated. She appreciates adventurers who recognize valuable matter. IALS rather than focusing exclusively on magic stones. Minato nodded acceptance while beginning his meal, noting the subtle dynamic between the two women, familiarity beyond professional courtesy, shish. ARED understanding communicated through micro-expressions rather than words. Their relationship extended beyond simple co-workers, suggesting history beyond the tavern's operations. Sir departed to attend other customers while Ryu remained momentarily. If you encountered something truly unusual, she said quietly, discretion may be advisable until you understand its significance. Certain familias aggressively pursue anomalies for various purposes. The warning carried weight beyond simple advice. Thank you. I'll proceed accordingly. She nodded once before returning to her duties, leaving Minato to consider implications while completing his meal. The interaction confirmed his initial assessment of Ryu. Her background extended far beyond simple tavern employee, likely including significant adventuring experience and connections throughout Orario's complex social ecosystem. More immediately relevant was her recommendation regarding Tsubaki Colbrand. Hephaestus Familia specialized in crafting rather than exploration. Their reputation built on producing Orario's finest weapons and armor. Access to skilled craftsmen might prove invaluable given his unique requirements. As he finished eating, his awareness registered subtle observation from across the tavern. A hooded figure occupied distant table, posture and positioning suggesting professional surveillance rather than casual interest. Female. Based on physical proportions, though features remained concealed beneath shadowed cowl. Minato gave no indication of detection, maintaining relaxed demeanor while extending perception beyond normal parameters. The watcher exhibited exceptional stillness, not merely physical discipline but controlled breathing and heartbeat suggesting advanced training. More significantly, her energy signature registered differently than typical adventurers, refined, concentrated, indicative of specialized development rather than general capability enhancement. Interesting. Someone considered him worth professional assessment. Likely following the crystal acquisition. Ryu's warning about familias pursuing anomalies acquired immediate practical application. He settled his account with Sir, exchanging pleasantries that revealed nothing of his awareness regarding surveillance. As he departed, he implemented counter-surveillance techniques automatically, not obviously evasive movements. That would confirm the observer's suspicions, but subtle path variations and timing adjustments that complicated tracking without revealing awareness of being tracked. The night air carried autumn crispness. Streets illuminated by magic stone lamps that cast pools of blue-tinged light at regular intervals. Orario's architecture created abundant shadow regions between illuminated areas, providing perfect environment for surveillance detection routing. 3 blocks from the hostess, Minato confirmed his suspicion. The hooded figure maintained distance while matching his pace precisely, utilizing parallel routes to avoid direct line-of-sight maintenance. Professional methodology suggesting formal training rather than opportunistic following. Rather than continuing evasion, he chose direct approach. At the next intersection, he turned casually into narrow alleyway, positioning himself against shadowed wall while suppressing energy signature below detection threshold. When the hooded figure entered moments later, he spoke from darkness. Following someone through Orario's streets at night generally indicates either hostile intent or professional interest. Which applies in this case. To her credit, the woman showed no outward surprise despite being outmaneuvered. She remained motionless in the alley entrance, silhouette backlit by street lamps beyond. Professional interest, she answered after brief consideration. Voice carrying cultured inflection suggesting formal education. Though I'm impressed you detected surveillance. Most adventurers lack such awareness. Most adventurers haven't had reason to develop it, he replied, stepping forward into diffuse light that revealed his position without compromising tactical advantage. Since you've gone to such effort, her APS direct conversation would prove more efficient than continued observation. She considered this before pushing back her hood, revealing features that combined intellectual intensity with understated beauty. Short teal hair framing analytical eyes behind practical spectacles, expression suggesting someone accustomed to methodical assessment rather than emotional response. Asfi al-Andromeda, she introduced herself formally. Captain of Hermes Familia. The name registered from Guild Information, a familia specializing in information gathering and specialized missions rather than traditional dungeon exploration. Their involvement suggested the crystal held greater significance than initially apparent. Minato Namikaze, he responded, though she clearly knew this already. What specify? Kali interests Hermes Familia about my activities. Unusual material acquisition, she answered directly, apparently deciding honest approach served better than continued subterfuge. Our Familia maintains comprehensive monitoring of significant dungeon anomalies. The crystal information you encountered on the 10th floor registered on multiple detection systems. This confirmed the Formatio's exceptional nature while raising additional questions. Detection systems beyond normal guild monitoring. Hermes Familia utilizes specialized equipment for identifying energy signature variations throughout accessible dungeon levels. She explained with evident precision. The formation you discovered produced readings unprecedented in recent records. Minato processed this information against his developing understanding of Orario's power structures. Hermes Familia clearly operated more sophisticated intelligence gathering than publicly acknowledged, suggesting resources and objectives beyond standard adventuring. And your interest in my possession of material from this formation? He inquired. Asfi adjusted her spectacles with deliberate movement that suggested habitual gesture rather than actual necessity. Primarily research-oriented, unusual dungeon phenomena often indicate significant developments within deeper levels. Understanding precursor events helps predict larger patterns. The explanation seemed genuine though incomplete, factually accurate while omitting underlying motivations. Regardless, direct hostility appeared absent, making immediate conflict unnecessary. I appreciate forthright explanation, he acknowledged. Though future inquiries might benefit from direct approach rather than surveillance, I'm generally willing to discuss unusual discoveries with interested parties, provided mutual respect remains intact. Something in his response earned subtle reassessment, her posture shifting fractionally as initial categorization adjusted to incorporate new information. Noted. Would you consider allowing examination of the material you recovered? Our Familia possesses equipment for non-destructive analysis unavailable through standard guild resources. The offer represented both opportunity and potential complication. Access to advanced analysis might provide valuable insights, yet sharing the crystal meant revealing its unique resonance. With his internal energy, information better controlled until he understood its significance fully. Perhaps a compromise, he suggested. I'm consulting Tsubaki Kulbrand tomorrow regarding material properties. If you'd care to join that discussion, we might benefit from combined expertise while maintaining appropriate discretion. Asfi considered this with evident calculation of advantages versus potential complications. Acceptable, she finally agreed. Tsubaki's metallurgical knowledge complements our energy analysis capabilities. Shall we meet at Hephaestus Familia's Northwest Forge at mid-morning? That seems appropriate. Until tomorrow, then. She replaced her hood with practiced motion before departing, movements betraying nothing of her thoughts regarding their exchange. Minato remained momentarily, analyzing the interaction against developing understanding of Orario's complex social dynamics. Hermes Familia's interest confirmed the crystal's significance while raising questions about its broader implications. More immediately, tomorrow's consultation would provide technical assessment while potentially revealing additional information about Familia motivations and capabilities. He continued toward his lodgings, awareness extended to detect any additional surveillance. None registered beyond normal street activity, either Asfi operated alone or additional observe. Possessed capabilities beyond his current detection parameters. Either possibility warranted continued caution. Orario's surface simplicity. Adventurers exploring the dungeon for resources and advancement. clearly concealed more complex objectives among various factions. Navigating these currents would require careful balance between gathering information and revealing capabilities. As he entered his room at the hostess, another memory fragment surfaced unbidden. The most dangerous battlefield isn't physical, Shikamaru explained, expression carrying the weight of decades serving as shadow advisor to multiple Hokages. It's the invisible conflict of information, misinformation, and calculated revelation. Asterisk. Naruto nodded, understanding earned through years of leadership rather than natural inclination. Knowing when transparency serves better than secrecy. Asterisk. And recognizing when others apply the same calculations to their interactions with you, his advisor added. Every disclosure contains purpose beyond its content. Asterisk. The wisdom remained relevant across worlds and lifetimes. Tomorrow's meeting would provide opportunity to gather information while carefully managing High's own disclosures, a familiar dance despite the unfamiliar partners. Northwest Babel glowed copper in morning sunlight, Hephaestus Familia's forges already active despite early hour. Smoke rose from multiple chimneys, carrying distinctive metallic scents alongside conventional wood-fire aromas. The compound sprawled across several connected buildings, each dedicated to different aspects of metallurgical and magical crafting. Minato approached the main entrance, crystal secured in inner pocket while awareness extended to surrounding environment. No surveillance registered beyond standard security. Hephaestus Familia maintained professional monitoring without excessive paranoia, their reputation providing sufficient protection against most potential threats. The attendant at reception desk, a young human with burn-scarred hands suggesting apprentice status, straightened attentively. Welcome to Hephaestus Forge. How may we assist you today? I have an appointment with Tsubaki Colbrand, Minato replied. Regarding material consultation. Of course. Captain Colbrand mentioned expecting visitors. The attendant gestured toward interior doorway. Please follow the main corridor, or to the specialized materials workshop. You'll recognize it by the blue door with silver inlay. The interior revealed efficiency disguised as simplicity, workspace organization that maximized productivity while minimizing wasted movement, equipment positioned for optimal workflow rather than aesthetic consideration. Craftsmen and apprentices moved with practiced coordination, each focused on specific tasks while maintaining awareness of surrounding activities. The blue door appeared at corridor's end, its silver inlay forming complex patterns reminiscent of circuit diagrams rather than conventional decorative elements. Before Minato could announce himself, it swung open to reveal a woman whose presence commanded immediate attention. Tsubaki Colbrand stood nearly as tall as Otar, with substantially different proportions, powerful frame combining feminine curves with unmistakable musculature. Her features reflected mixed heritage, half-dwarf ancestry evident in facial structure while maintaining human height and proportions. An eye patch covered her right eye, the visible left assessing him with experienced craftsman's precision. You must be the independent who's got Sir playing matchmaker, she declared. Voice carrying volume that suggested habitual forge communication without artificial amplification. Come in. Any friend of the hostess crew is welcome in my workshop. The space beyond revealed organized chaos, workbenches covered with projects in various stages of completion, walls lined with tools ranging from conventional hammers to specialized implements. Hose functions defied immediate identification. Magical equipment hummed with subdued energy, crystalline components glowing with contained power. I appreciate your willingness to consult, Minato replied, noting the workshop's impressive capabilities. I've encountered unusual material that might benefit from expert assessment. That's what I'm here for. Tsubaki's enthusiasm projected genuine rather than performative interest. Nothing more exciting than exotic materials with unexpected properties. Let's see what you've brought. As Minato reached for the crystal, the door opened again to admit Asfi. Her usual hooded attire replaced by practical clothing more appropriate for workshop environment. She nodded acknowledgement to Minato before addressing Tsubaki directly. Thank you for accommodating joint consultation. She stated formally. Hermes Familia has interest in the material's energy properties beyond physical composition. Tsubaki's eyebrow arched above her visible eye. Well now, isn't this interesting? Independent adventurer and Hermes Familia both interested in the same exotic material. Her gaze shifted between them assessingly before her expression brightened. Must be something special. Let's have a look. Minato produced the crystal fragment, placing it on examination table that dominated the workshop's center. Both women leaned forward with professional interest. Though their focus differed noticeably, Tsubaki examining physical properties while Asfi observed energy patterns. Fascinating structure, Tsubaki murmured, producing magnifying lens that extended from articulated armature attached to her workshop apron. Primary composition resembles standard magic stone but with completely different crystalline lattice organization. See these refraction patterns. They're channeling energy through specific pathways rather than general distribution. Asfi produced small device from leather case, a crystalline cylinder containing mechanical component. TS2 intricate for casual identification. When activated, it projected magical illumination that revealed energy patterns within the fragment as visible aura. Dual-aspected resonance, she noted with clinical precision. Primary thaumaturgic signature consistent with dungeon emanations, but secondary pattern suggests external influence. Almost like someone deliberately modified natural formation, Tsubaki finished. Exchanging meaningful glance with Asfi. You thinking what I'm thinking? Artificial manipulation of dungeon crystalline structures, Asfi confirmed. Technically possible but requiring exceptional skill and specific methodologies. Minato observed their interaction with interest, noting professional respect underlying their exchange. You've seen similar modifications before. Not personally, Tsubaki replied, returning attention to the fragment. But theoretical models exist for directed crystalline growth within dungeon environments. Primarily academic. Research without practical implementation due to extreme difficulty and risk factors. The energy pattern suggests successful application of theoretical principles, Asfi added, adjusting her Devik ease settings to reveal additional detail. Though purpose remains unclear without contextual information. Their combined assessment confirmed the crystal's exceptional nature while raising additional questions about its origin and function. More significantly, both experts demonstrated knowledge beyond conventional adventurer parameters, suggesting connections to research communities operating beyond public awareness. Where exactly did you find this? Tsubaki inquired, tone maintaining professional curiosity without interrogative pressure. 10th floor, eastern quadrant, Minato answered truthfully though incompletely. Protected by irregular monster formation with coordinated defensive behaviors. This information earned exchanged glances between the women, communication through Miker. Expressions suggesting shared knowledge beyond their verbal exchange. Irregular spawning with coordinated behavior, Asfi noted. Consistent with documented anomalies following significant lower-level events. The timing matches patterns we've been tracking, Tsubaki agreed. Though this represents unprecedented crystalline sophistication compared to previous samples. Their exchange confirmed Minato's developing assessment. Something significant had occurred in deeper dungeon levels recently, with effects propagating upward through connected systems. The crystal represented manifestation of these changes rather than isolated phenomenon. Beyond academic interest, he inquired, what practical applications might such material demonstrate? Tsubaki brightened visibly at the question. Professional enthusiasm overriding cautious information management. That's where things get interesting. Theoretically, modified crystalline structures could channel specific energy types with unprecedented efficiency. Weapons incorporating such materials might produce effects impossible through conventional enchantment methodologies. Specialized equipment rather than general application, Asfi clarified. The resonance pattern suggests affinity for particular energy signatures rather than universal compatibility. Minato processed this information against his developing understanding of energy manipulation in this world. Similar to how different adventurers demonstrate affinity for specific magical elements or physical enhancement patterns. Exactly. Tsubaki's approval came with enthusiastic finger snap. Most adventurers work with general-purpose equipment adapted to common energy distributions. Truly exceptional results emerge when equipment resonates specifically with individual energy signatures. This explained much about high-level adventurers. Equipment, not merely quality craftsmanship but specialized customization aligned with personal attributes. More significantly, it suggested potential application for the crystal that extended beyond academic curiosity. Would crafting equipment incorporating this material be possible? He inquired. Tsubaki assessed him with renewed interest. Professional evaluation replacing general curiosity. Technically possible, certainly, though practical implementation would require extensive testing to identify optimal configurations and compatible materials. She leaned forward with intensified focus. More importantly, it would require identifying which adventurer's energy signature demonstrates specific resonance with the crystal's properties. The statement contained subtle inquiry, professional assessment masking personal curiosity about his interest beyond general information gathering. Asfi similarly displayed heightened attention, though with more controlled expression. Minato considered his response carefully. Revealing the crystal's resonance with his personal energy signature would provide valuable technical information while exposing potentially sensitive capabilities. However, withholding such information would limit potential benefits from their combined expertise. Decision crystallized with pragmatic assessment. Controlled disclosure offered greater advantage than continued concealment, particularly given both experts demonstrated knowledge and professional discretion. The crystal resonates specifically with my energy signature, he stated directly. When initially discovered, direct contact produced energy transfer unlike standard material interaction. Rather than surprise, this confirmation produced thoughtful consideration from both women. Tsubaki's expression shifted toward professional intrigue while Asfi made subtle adjustment to her analytical device. That explains certain readings, the latter noted. Studying results with increased intensity. Your energy signature contains unusual dual-aspect configuration similar to the crystal's own structure. Fascinating. Tsubaki leaned closer, examining Minato rather than the crystal. I've never encountered adventurer energy patterns with natural crystalline resonance, especially without divine blessing establishing foundation parameters. Her observation highlighted the anomaly Minato himself continued exploring. His capabilities existed outside standard Orario metaphysical framework, operating according to principles that incorporated chakra system fundamentals while adapting to local energetic conditions. My training developed along unconventional pathways, he offered, truth without complete disclosure. Clearly, Tsubaki's enthusiasm manifested as immediate practical consideration. This opens exceptional crafting possibilities. Equipment designed specifically for your energy signature utilizing resonant material could produce effects beyond standard enhancement parameters. Theoretical applications include accelerated energy transmission, reduced resistance during manifestation, and potent novel expression forms impossible through conventional methodologies, Asfi added with clinical precision. Their combined assessment confirmed potential value while raising practical questions about implementation. What would crafting such equipment require? Minato inquired. Tsubaki shifted immediately to professional planning mode, focus narrowing to technical considerations rather than theoretical possibilities. Comprehensive energy signature mapping, material compatibility testing, progressive prototype development. Her expression brightened with creative anticipation. Challenging project. Exactly the kind of work that makes smithing interesting. Hermes Familia possesses equipment for detailed energy signature analysis, Asfi offered, her usual reserve yielding slightly to professional interest. Combined with Hephaestus Familia's crafting capabilities, practical implementation becomes viable despite theoretical complexity. Their collaboration emerged with icing naturalness, complementary expertise converging around shared professional curiosity despite different organizational affiliations. Minato noted this dynamic with interest, recognizing potential value beyond immediate technical consultation. I would appreciate your combined expertise in exploring these possibilities, he acknowledged. Though practical considerations include appropriate compensation for professional services rendered, Tsubaki waved dismissively. Initial consultation and basic testing fall under standard Hephaestus Familia services. Progressive development would require formal commission, but costs remain reasonable for specialized equipment reflecting actual material and labor investment. Similarly, preliminary analysis services require no formal compensation, Asfi added. Hermes Familia values knowledge acquisition regarding unusual phenomena independently of commercial considerations. Their responses suggested interest beyond simple professional survey. CES. Genuine curiosity about the crystal's properties and Minato's unusual energy configuration. Such interest potentially created both opportunity and vulnerability, depending on underlying motivations. Then I accept your generous offers for initial assessment, he decided. When would be appropriate to begin the process? Tsubaki's response came with characteristic enthusiasm. No time like the present. I'll prepare basic resonance testing equipment while ASV handles preliminary energy mapping. We'll establish fundamental parameters today, then develop implementation strategy based on initial results. What followed demonstrated both women's exceptional professional capabilities. Tsubaki's crafting expertise manifested through intuitive material assessment combined with methodical testing procedures. She approached the crystal with respect for its properties rather than forcing predetermined applications. ASV similarly exhibited precision in energy analysis, her equipment revealing patterns invisible to conventional observation. Most significantly, both maintained professional ethics throughout. Neither attempted accessing information beyond stated parameters, respecting boundaries while sharing relevant observations. Their collaboration proceeded with surprising efficiency despite representing different familias with potentially competing interests. The testing process revealed fascinating results. The crystal responded dramatically to Minato's proximity, its energy signature synchronizing with his own in patterns that defied standard magical theory. More significantly, when he channeled energy intentionally, the material amplified and refined the flow rather than merely conducting it, enhancing efficiency while reducing dissipation. Extraordinary compatibility, ASV noted, studying readings with undisguised fascination. The resonance exceeds theoretical models for even optimally matched materials. Almost as though the crystal formed specifically in response to your energy signature. Or like your energy somehow shaped its formation, Tsubaki suggested, expression thoughtful beneath her usual enthusiasm. Which raises interesting questions about causality and influence patterns between adventurers and dungeon environments. Their observations paralleled Minato's own developing theory. The crystal's formation likely responded to Kurama's residual energy that had transferred during reincarnation. The Nine Tails' power had always demonstrated unusual interaction with surrounding environments, occasionally manifesting physical changes in response to emotional or spiritual states. The testing continued through mid-afternoon, each experiment revealing additional properties while generating new questions. Throughout, Minato maintained careful balance between cooperation and discretion, providing necessary information for technical assessment while avoiding details that might reveal his reincarnation status or previous existence's specific capabilities. Based on preliminary results, Tsubaki finally declared, organizing notes with uncharacteristic meticulousness, I can confirm viable crafting potential utilizing this material. The Resonance patterns suggest optimal application through bladed weapons rather than blunt force implements, with secondary possibilities for defensive equipment if sufficient material becomes available. Energy compatibility indicates potential for developing specialized techniques beyond standard adventurer parameters, ASV added. Though practical application would require progressive training rather than immediate implementation. Minato nodded, processing their assessments against his own developing understanding. How would you recommend proceeding? Tsubaki's response came with proficio. Null confidence tempered by creative enthusiasm. I'll develop preliminary designs based on today's findings. Nothing final, just conceptual approaches for your consideration. With your approval, we LD then proceed to prototype development using minimal material to verify theoretical models before committing to full implementation. Concurrent energy analysis would optimize integration between equipment design and utilization methodology, ASV suggested. Hermes Familia facilities remain available for continued testing if you're amenable. Their proposed approach balanced thoroughness against practical progression, methodical development rather than rushing toward implementation without sufficient understanding. The professionalism impressed Minato, reinforcing positive assessment of both individuals beyond their technical capabilities. That seems appropriate, he agreed. Though I'll need to continue normal dungeon activities alongside this project. Of course, Tsubaki exclaimed. Adventuring provides essential context for equipment development. Theoretical models mean nothing without practical field application. Hermes Familia similarly recognizes the importance of continued adventurer activity. ASV acknowledged. Our analysis can accommodate your exploration schedule rather than disrupting it. With agreement established, they exchanged contact arrangements for future consultation. Throughout, Minato noted the developing professional rapport between all three participants, respect based on demonstrated competence rather than formal affiliations or status considerations. As they concluded, Tsubaki retained the smallest fragment of crystal for initial material testing while returning the primary specimen to Minato. Asfi similarly preserved energy signature re-recordings while maintaining appropriate data security protocols. This project, Tsubaki declared as they prepared to depart, represents exactly the kind of challenge that makes smithing worthwhile. Standard equipment production maintains technical proficiency, but truly exceptional crafting requires unique materials combined with unusual energy configurations. The research value extends beyond immediate application. Asfi added with uncharacteristic animation brightening her normally reserved expression. Understanding interaction between adventurer energy signatures and specialized materials potentially reveals fundamental principles underlying the entire dungeon ecosystem. Their enthusiasm reflected genuine professional passion rather than mere commercial interest. Craftsmen encountering worthy challenges that extended beyond routine application of established techniques. Minato recognized kindred spirits in their approach, reminding him of specialized shinobi who had aided their disciplines through continuous innovation rather than mere repetition. As he departed Hephaestus Forge, another memory fragment surfaced. The finest weapons, Tenten explained while meticulously maintaining her extensive collection, aren't merely sharp metal. They're extensions of the wielder's spirit, channeling intention as much as physical force. Naruto nodded, watching her hands move with practiced precision across blades that had served through decades of missions. Like how Asuma Sensei's blades conducted his chakra. Exactly. She selected a kunai that appeared remarkable except to experienced eyes that could recognize superior craftsmanship in subtle details. The best smiths understand they're creating connections between wielder and tool, not just manufacturing implements. The memory provided valuable context for his current situation. Equipment in this world functioned similarly to chakra-conducting weapons in his previous existence, channels for energy expression rather than mere physical tools. Tsubaki's expertise might prove invaluable in developing implements specifically designed for his unique requirements. With these considerations settled, Minato redirected attention toward the dungeon. The afternoon remained sufficient for exploration, particularly given his interest in verifying whether additional crystalline formations might exist in regions similar to his initial discovery. The dungeon's 11th floor featured different architectural patterns than upper levels, larger chambers connected by winding corridors with irregular ceiling heights and occasional water features. The lighting shifted toward amber hues rather than the blue-green bioluminescence of the 10th floor, creating distinctly different atmospheric conditions. Minato moved with practiced efficiency, maintaining awareness of surrounding environment while conserving energy for potential confrontations. His earlier explorations had mapped general pathways through this level, identifying optimal routes between connection points while cataloging monster spawn tendencies. Other adventurers appeared occasionally, typically well-equipped parties rather than solo explorers. Their formations suggesting experienced coordination rather than novice enthusiasm. Most acknowledged his presence with professional nods before continuing their own activities, respecting the unwritten protocol that governed adventurer interactions within the dungeon. As he navigated toward eastern regions that mirrored the 10th floor area where he'd discovered the crystal, his awareness registered unusual activity ahead, elevated sounds suggesting combat involving multiple participants. The acoustic properties of dungeon architecture made precise identification difficult, but distress patterns were unmistakable. Decision formed automatically. Investigation warranted regardless of specific circumstances. He accelerated toward the disturbance, movement silent despite increased speed. The sounds resolved into clearer pattern as he approached. Multiple voices, some issuing commands while others expressed panic, interspersed with distinctive monster vocalizations. The chamber ahead revealed chaotic scene. Adventurer party surrounded by infant dragons, their formation broken and defensive perimeter compromised. The monsters, while not fully mature specimens, STILL presented significant threat through numerical advantage and coordinated aggression. More concerning was the party's composition, younger adventurers with equipment suggesting limited experience despite reaching this depth. Analysis completed in moments. Novice party overextended beyond capability parameters, likely pursuing achievement beyond their preparation level. Current situation indicate D. Imminent casualties without intervention. Minato acted without hesitation, silent approach transitioning to explosive movement as he entered the chamber. His blade cleared its sheath with practiced precision, intercepting the nearest dragon's attack trajectory before it could complete its lunge toward injured adventurer. The creature's momentum carried it past severed head, body dissolving into luminescent particles before hitting ground. The adventurers registered his arrival with expressions ranging from shock to desperate relief. Their leader, a young woman with practical armor and determination beyond her apparent experience, shouted instructions to consolidate defensive position around their most injured member. Form circle. Priority on Elwyn's protection. Unknown adventurer on perimeter support. Her assessment and response demonstrated tactical understanding despite their compromised situation, recognizing assistance without abandoning fundamental defensive principles. Minato acknowledged her instruction with brief nod while continuing his movement around the formation's exterior. What followed demonstrated the difference between standard adventurer capabilities and his unique approach. Rather than conventional combat patterns, Minato implemented techniques developed through lifetime experience across two existences, not merely defeating individual monsters but controlling battlefield dynamics through positioning and momentum manipulation. His blade became nearly invisible through sheer speed, intersecting attack vectors while creating openings for the adventurer party to stabilize their formation. More significantly, he channeled energy through pathways similar to chakra networks but adapted to this world's metaphysical framework. The result manifested as physical enhancement beyond normal parameters, speed, strength, and precision exceeding standard adventurer capabilities even with divine blessing. The infant dragons, initially coordinating attacks effectively, found their formation disrupted by presence they couldn't predict or counter. Their instinctive adaptation, focusing multiple attackers on the new threat, created opportunity for the adventurer party to re-establish defensive integrity while addressing their injured companions' needs. Minato recognized their leader's competence as she immediately exploited the opening, directing her companions with precise instructions that maximized effectiveness despite limited experience. The blonde-haired young man administering healing potion to their injured companion similarly demonstrated composure beyond his apparent years, maintaining focus despite chaotic surroundings. The battle concluded with efficiency born of necessity, Minato eliminating threats systematically while the adventurer party consolidated position and addressed immediate vulnerabilities. When stillness finally returned, dissolved monster remnants drifted through air like luminescent snowfall. That was the party leader approached with expression combining gratitude with professional assessment. Thank you. We miscalculated spawn patterns and found ourselves in progressive deterioration scenario. Understandable miscalculation, Minato acknowledged, wiping his blade methodically before resheathing. 11th floor spawn behaviors demonstrate greater variability than guild documentation suggests. She studied him with increased interest, noting his solo status and apparent comfort despite the level's challenges. You're the independent who's been making waves recently. Minato Namikaze, correct, he nodded, mildly surprised at recognition. And you are Fin Diemni, captain of Loki Familia. She gestured toward her companions who had finished gathering magic stones from dissolved monsters. These are newer members undergoing intermediate training rotation. I accompanied their expedition as evaluation observer rather than active participant until circumstances required intervention. The introduction provided context for apparent discrepancy between her tactical competence and the party's overall performance. Loki Familia represented one of Orario's most powerful organizations, with a reputation for producing exceptional adventurers through structured development programs. Appropriate training methodology, Minato observed. Controlled exposure to challenging circumstances develops adaptation capabilities more effectively than theoretical instruction. Something in his response earned approving reassessment. Exactly our philosophy. Though today's challenge exceeded intended parameters due to irregular spawn behavior throughout this region. The dungeon has been demonstrating unusual patterns recently, he acknowledged, considering how much information to share regarding crystalline formations, particularly in eastern sectors of middle floors. Finn's expression sharpened with professional interest. You've noticed similar anomalies. Our monitoring systems have registered increased irregularity but without clear causal identification. The conversation paused as her companions approached, having completed post-battle procedures with methodical efficiency despite their relative inexperience. The blonde healer spoke first, his expression combining gratitude with analytical assessment. Thank you for your assistance. Your combat methodology demonstrates UNU Sewell principles, energy channeling without standard magical structures, physical enhancement exceeding typical blessing parameters. His tone contained professional curiosity rather than suspicious interrogation. Particularly interesting given independent status. Hadeen, appropriate timing can enhance gratitude's sincerity, Finn chided gently before returning attention to Minato. Though his observation raises valid questions many would consider. Independent adventurers with your capability level typically emerge from established familias rather than appearing without documented background. The statement contained implicit inquiry without demanding immediate disclosure, professional curiosity tempered by respect for personal boundaries. Minato recognized opportunity for controlled info. Our exchange that might yield valuable context regarding dungeon anomalies. My training developed through unconventional pathways, he offered, truth without complete disclosure. Which provides different perspective on recent dungeon behavioral changes. Finn assessed him thoughtfully before making apparent decision. Perhaps mutually beneficial information exchange might serve both parties. Loki Familia maintains comprehensive monitoring systems throughout accessible dungeon levels, while your independent exploration potentially provides observations outside our established parameters. The offer represented significant opportunity. Access to Loki Familia's extensive information networks would provide valuable context for understanding his discoveries, particularly regarding Christ. Align formations and their relationship to dungeon systems. I would welcome such exchange, Minato acknowledged. Though practical implementation might require consideration of appropriate venues and participants. Indeed, Finn produced small communication crystal from equipment pouch. This will connect with our headquarters coordinator. Mention my name and request consultation regarding irregular dungeon phenomena. They'll arrange appropriate meeting. Minato accepted the crystal with appropriate respect for its significance, direct communication access to Orario's most accomplished exploration familia represented substantial trust. I appreciate your confidence. Demonstrated competence earns professional courtesy, Finn replied simply. Your intervention today prevented potential casualties among promising recruits. Loki Familia acknowledges such assistance appropriately. Further conversation was interrupted by the blonde healer, Hadeen, approaching with increased urgency. Captain, Elwyn's condition suggests immediate return rather than continued exploration. The combination of physical injuries and mental fatigue indicates progressive deterioration without proper recovery environment. Finn nodded, immediate concern replacing professional discussion. Expedition concluded, then, we'll utilize Western Passage for most direct surface return. She turned to Minato with formal acknowledgement. Until our information exchange, then. Safe exploration. Safe return, he responded with equally formal protocol. As they departed, Minato considered the encounter's implications. Loki Familia's interest in dungeon anomalies suggested the crystalline formation represented more significant phenomenon than isolated curiosity. Combined with Hermes Familia's monitoring stems and Hephaestus Familia's material interest, pattern emerged indicating coordinated awareness among Orario's major powers regarding unusual dungeon activities. More immediately relevant was the opportunity for information exchange that might provide context for his own discoveries. Understanding the dungeon's current behavioral patterns could illuminate potential connections to his reincarnated circumstances, particularly regarding Kurama's residual energy and its apparent resonance with crystalline formations. He continued exploration with heightened awareness, methodically investigating chamber configurations similar to where he'd discovered the original crystal. Though no additional formations appeared, subtle environmental differences registered throughout eastern sectors, slightly elevated temperature, altered mineralogical distributions, faint energy signatures beneath normal perceptual threshold. Something significant had occurred within the dungeon's deeper levels, with effects propagating upward through connected systems. The crystal represented manifestation of these changes rather than isolated phenomenon. More concerning was apparent connection to his own unique energy signature. as though the dungeon itself somehow recognized or responded to Kurama's residual influence. As afternoon transitioned toward evening, Minato concluded exploration and began ascent toward surface levels. The day's events required careful consideration: technical consultation with Tsubaki and Asfi, potential information exchange with Loki Familia, and implications regarding his RGY signature's interaction with dungeon environments. Progress through upper levels proceeded efficiently until unexpected disturbance registered ahead, sounds of combat with distinctive magical discharge signatures. He accelerated toward the disturbance, tactical assessment forming automatically as scenario revealed itself. The situation mirrored earlier encounter with troubling variation: Aneth. Adventurer party surrounded by monsters, but these creatures demonstrated unusual behavioral patterns. Rather than standard aggression, they moved with unnatural coordination suggesting external influence rather than instinctive response. More concerning was the adventurers' condition. Their movements showed progressive deterioration despite apparent experience and equipment quality. Not mere fatigue or injury, but something affecting coordination and response timing, as though fundamental connection between intention and execution had been disrupted. Minato entered the chamber with calculated approach, blade clearing sheath as he moved to flank nearest monster, an enhanced silverback demonstrating combat patterns beyond typical specimen capabilities. His strike connected with perfect precision, severing critical tendons to eliminate mobility without requiring immediately fatal damage. The creature's response proved most concerning. Rather than standard pain reaction, it adjusted with tactical reassessment, compensating for damaged limb while maintaining coordinated positioning with surrounding monsters. Such adaptation suggested intelligence beyond normal parameters, almost as though controlled by external consciousness. The adventurer party registered his arrival with expressions of desperate relief. Their leader, a muscular human with practical plate armor, shouted warning, even as he defended against approaching hellhound. Careful, these aren't normal spawns. Something's controlling them collectively. The assessment confirmed Minato's own observations while raising additional concerns about potential source. He adjusted approach accordingly, focusing on disrupting apparent coordination rather than eliminating individual monsters. Energy channeled through familiar pathways, enhancing speed beyond normal perception as he implemented disruption tactics rather than conventional combat strategy. The effectiveness became immediately apparent. His movements between monster clusters created interference patterns in whatever mechanism facilitated their coordination. Individuals separated from group connection reverted to standard behavioral patterns, making them vulnerable to conventional combat approaches. The adventurer party recognized the strategy with professional quickness, adjusting their own tactics to exploit openings created through coordination disruption. Their leader demonstrated tactical flexibility by redirecting companions toward isolated targets while maintaining defensive perimeter against still coordinated clusters. Working in concert, despite never having fought together previously, Minato and the adventurer party systematically eliminated the threat. Throughout, he noted unusual characteristics among dissolved monsters: energy patterns suggesting external enhancement rather than natural evolution, structural variations inconsistent with standard dungeon manifestations. When combat concluded, the party's leader approached with expression combining gratitude with professional concern. Appreciated assistance. These enhanced spawns have been appearing with increasing frequency throughout middle levels. Something's definitel. Why influencing monster development beyond normal parameters? I've noticed similar anomalies, Minato acknowledged. Though this represents first encounter with coordinated tactical adaptation. Alman Mir, Dionysus Familia. The man introduced himself, extending hand in warrior's grip. We've been tracking these manifestations for several weeks now. Initial reports suggested isolated incidents, but patterns becoming clearer with each occurrence. The information confirmed developing assessment regarding dungeon-wide phenomena rather than localized anomalies. Any identification of originating source or controlling mechanism. Alman shook his head, expression grim beneath sweat-streaked features. Nothing definitive yet. Guilds officially recording incidents but maintaining information restriction to prevent panic. Underlying pattern suggests progressive intensification originating from deeper levels. One of his companions, a slender woman with distinctive casting staff, joined conversation with additional concern. The energy signature contains distinctive characteristics unlike standard monster manifestations. Almost like, she hesitated, glancing toward Ullman for permission to continue. Like divine influence, he completed, expression suggesting information not widely shared. Though how any deity could affect dungeon manifestations directly violates fundamental restrictions. The implication carried serious consequences. Gods in Orario operated under strict prohibition against direct use of divine powers, their activities limited to blessing followers and general guidance rather than direct intervention in mortal affairs. Violation of this principle would trigger response from guild enforcement mechanisms and potentially other deities. Concerning development, Minato acknowledged processing implications against developing understanding of Orario's metaphysical framework. Has Dionysus Familia shared these observations with other organizations tracking similar phenomena? Limited coordination exists, Ullman confirmed. Though institutional competition sometimes complicates information sharing, Loki and Hermes Familias maintain independent monitoring systems, while Ganesha handles official guild response protocols. The fragmented approach potentially allowed critical pattern recognition to slip between organizational boundaries, each group observing portions of larger phenomenon without comprehensive understanding. Another memory fragment surfaced, providing relevant context. Information silos, Shikamaru explained during council briefing, create vulnerability through artificial separation. When multiple observers each hold pieces of larger pattern without integration mechanism, critical connections remain invisible until manifestation stage prevents effective response. Asterisk. Integrated analysis might reveal patterns individual monitoring systems miss, Minato suggested. Perhaps coordination between tracking organizations would provide more comprehensive understanding. Ullman's expression showed agreement tempered by practical skepticism. Theoretically sound approach, though institutional dynamics create implementation challenges. Most familias protect information advantages regardless of potential collective benefit. The observation highlighted fundamental tension within Orario's social structures, cooperation versus competition. Shared security against individual advantage. Another aspect of this world that mirrored his previous existence despite different specific manifestations. Something to consider regardless, Minato noted. If phenomena continue intensifying, collective response may become necessity rather than preference. They exchanged contact information before departing in different directions. Dionysus Familia continuing deeper while Minato resumed surface ascent. Throughout, his awareness remained heightened for additional anomalies, particularly energy signatures similar to coordinated monsters or crystalline formations. The encounters had provided valuable context for understanding broader patterns affecting the dungeon. Combined with technical consultation regarding crystalline materials and potential information exchange with Loki Familia, comprehensive picture began emerging. Something significant occurring within deeper levels, effects manifesting through various phenomena including enhanced monsters, coordinated behavior patterns, and unusual material formations. More concerning was apparent connection to his own unique energy signature. The crystalline formations are assonance with Kurama's residual influence suggested relationship beyond coincidence. Whether his presence had somehow triggered these changes or merely coincided with independent developments remained unclear. As he reached surface levels and prepared to exit the dungeon, his awareness registered unexpected observation, someone monitoring his emergence with professional discretion rather than casual interest. Female based on energy signature, positioned near exit with sightline advantage while maintaining inconspicuous appearance. Rather than acknowledging detection, Minato maintained normal demeanor while extending perception beyond visual confirmation. The observer's energy signature registered differently than typical adventurers, refined, controlled, with distinctive patterning suggesting specialized development rather than general capability enhancement. Once outside Babel Tower, he implemented subtle counter-surveillance technique, not obvious evasion that would confirm observers' interest, but casual path variations that provided identification opportunity without revealing awareness of being monitored. The technique confirmed suspicion. Observer maintained professional distance. While adjusting position to preserve sightline. Recognition came as she passed through illumination provided by magic stone street lamp. Yamato Makoto, Takemikazuki Familia member known for acceptee. Onal blade techniques and traditional Eastern combat methodologies. Her observation suggested additional familiar interest in his activities beyond those already identified. Rather than confrontation or continued evasion, Minato chose direct approach. At next intersection, he altered course to intercept her position with casual movement that prevented escape without obvious avoidance. When they converged, he spoke with conversational tone that conveyed awareness without accusation. Orario's streets become surprisingly crowded during evening hours, he observed. Makes maintaining clear path challenging even for accomplished individuals. To her credit, Yamato showed minimal reaction beyond slight widening of eyes, professional composure recovering almost instantly. Indeed, she replied after brief consideration. Though skilled observers can identify optimal routes despite apparent congestion, the exchange acknowledged mutual awareness without requiring explicit confrontation. Minato nodded acknowledgement of her professional handling before continuing. Perhaps direct conversation would prove more efficient than continued observation. The hostess of fertility provides appropriate environment for professional discussion, if you're amenable. She considered this before nodding acceptance. Honorable approach. I would welcome such discussion. Their walk proceeded with comfortable silence, neither attempting unnecessary conversation before reaching appropriate venue. The hostess welcomed them with evening activity in full swing, adventurers celebrating successful express. Additions are drowning disappointments in equal measure. Sir approached as they entered, assessing their paired arrival with undisguised interest. Good evening, Minato. And Makoto as well. Unusual combination. Special table for professional discussion, perhaps. Her intuitive assessment of their interaction demonstrated observational skills beyond casual service staff. Minato nodded appreciation. If available, that would be appropriate. She led them to corner alcove offering privacy without isolation. Conversation would remain unheard by surrounding tables while maintaining public environment that preserved propriety. After taking beverage orders, she departed with knowing smile that suggested awareness beyond her apparent role. The hostess staff demonstrates unusual perceptiveness, Yamato observed once they were settled. A recurring observation, Minato agreed. Though valuable for establishing neutral discussion environment. Professional assessment completed, they studied each other with mutual respect rather than adversarial positioning. Yamato Makoto presented distinctive appearance, traditional Eastern features framed by practical hairstyle, clothing combining functio. Null design with subtle elements reflecting cultural heritage. Her posture demonstrated formal martial training, balance and awareness maintained even in seated position. I appreciate directness rather than continued observation dance. She began, formality in her speech pattern suggesting traditional upbringing. Takemikazuki Familia maintains interest in unusual dungeon phenomena affecting middle levels. Your recent activities intersect with our monitoring parameters. The acknowledgement came without excessive justification or defensive positioning, professional explanation of legitimate interest rather than apology for surveillance. Minato appreciated the straightforward approach. Similar interest expressed by several organizations today, he noted, suggesting coordinated awareness regarding dungeon anomalies despite limited information sharing. She nodded acknowledgement. Institutional dynamics often create artificial boundaries around knowledge that would benefit from collective analysis. Takemikazuki-sama encourages broader cooperation than most deities, though practical implementation remains challenging. The assessment aligned with Minato's developing understanding of Orario's complex social ecosystem. Various familias recognized ongoing dungeon anomalies while maintaining separate monitoring and response systems, limiting comprehensive understanding through institutional competition. Your specific interest in my activities? He inquired directly. Reports described independent adventurer demonstrating unusual combat methodology encountering significant anomalies within middle levels. She explained with equal directness. Investigation revealed your involvement with crystalline formation discovery and subsequent consultation with both Hephaestus and Hermes familias. The information flow proved more extensive than anticipated. Yamato's explanation revealed monitoring systems extending beyond simple dungeon observation into broader activity tracking throughout Orario. More significantly, her willingness to acknowledge such monitoring suggested confidence in its legitimacy rather than concern about potential negative response. Comprehensive awareness, he observed neutrally. Takemikazuki Familia emphasizes information gathering alongside combat proficiency, she acknowledged. Understanding environmental conditions creates foundation for appropriate response development. Their beverages arrived. Tea served in traditional style, suggesting Sir's awareness of Yamato's preferences. After server's departure, conversation resumed with increased focus. Beyond general monitoring, your specific interest appears directed toward my involvement rather than anomalies themselves, Minato noted. Suggesting additional factors beyond standard information gathering. Yamato considered her response carefully, assessing appropriate disclosure levels. Your combat methodology demonstrates principles similar to traditional techniques preserved within our familia's heritage. She finally explained. Energy channeling without standard magical structures, physical enhancement exceeding typical blessing parameters, tactical approaches emphasizing efficiency over power demonstration. The observation provided valuable context. Her interest stemmed from recognition of familiar principles within his fighting style rather than merely tracking anomalous dungeon phenomena. Given his incorporation of shinobi techniques adapted to this world's metaphysical framework, such recognition from traditionally trained observers seemed natural. Interesting assessment, he acknowledged. Though I'm unfamiliar with your familia's specific heritage, Takemikazuki-sama originated in eastern regions where combat disciplines developed different than Orario's conventional approaches, she explained. Our traditions emphasize internal energy cultivation alongside external technique refinement, principles largely abandoned within standard adventurer development methodologies. The description contained parallels to chakra development techniques from Minato's previous existence, focusing on internal energy pathways rather than simply drawing power from divine blessing. Such approach would naturally recognize similarities in his adapted fighting style, a perspective worth discussing further, he acknowledged. Though perhaps alongside broader conversation regarding dungeon anomalies affecting multiple familias. Yamato nodded agreement. Integration of related topics would serve efficiency. Perhaps formal discussion including representatives from organizations tracking similar phenomena. The suggestion aligned with Minato's earlier thoughts regarding information sharing between affected groups. Loki Familia extended similar invitation today. Perhaps coordinated approach would benefit all involved. Practical suggestion, she agreed. Takemikazuki-sama would support such coordination despite institutional tendencies toward separation. Their conversation continued with professional exchange regarding specific anomalies each had observed, Yamato describing enhanced monster encounters similar to those Minato had assisted Dionysus Familia against. While he provided general information about crystalline formations without revealing their specific resonance with his energy signature. Throughout, he noted her exceptional observational capabilities and analytical approach, assessments based on evidence rather than speculation, conclusions limited to available information without overextension. Her traditional each patterns contained subtle variations suggesting formal education alongside martial training, creating distinctive communication style that reflected complex background. As their discussion concluded, Yamato offered formal acknowledgement. I appreciate your willingness to engage directly rather than maintaining defensive separation. Such approach honors traditional values while serving practical objectives. Direct communication typically yields better results than continued observation uncertainty, he replied simply. They parted with mutual respect established, arrangements made for potential future discussion regarding both dungeon anomalies and combat methodology similarities. Throughout, Minato noted the developing pattern, multiple familiar representatives expressing interest in his activities alongside broader dungeon phenomena, suggesting his presence had somehow catalyzed attention toward developing situations. More significantly, Yamato's recognition of similarities between his adapted techniques and traditional Eastern combat methodologies provided valuable perspective. If this world contained disciplines resembling chakra manipulation principles, perhaps additional resources existed for understanding how his capabilities translated to current metaphysical framework. As he settled his account with Sir, she leaned closer with playful expression barely concealing genuine curiosity. Making friends among Takemikazuki Familia now. Your social circle expands impressively for someone so recently arrived. Professional consultation rather than social engagement, he clarified. Though her observation highlighted valid pattern, his interactions had indeed expanded beyond typical independent adventurer parameters. Of course, She agreed with expression suggesting otherwise. Though Makoto rarely engages with adventurers outside established connections. Your conversation appeared surprisingly comfortable for professional consultation between recent acquaintances. The observation contained accuracy he couldn't reasonably dispute. Despite initial surveillance dynamic, their interaction had developed natural rapport based on mutual professional respect. And shared interest in legitimate concerns. Common objectives create foundation for productive discussion regardless of prior relationship, he offered. Sir's smile suggested she found his plan charmingly inadequate while choosing not to press further. Well, whatever the nature of your expanding connections, they're certainly making life in Orario more interesting for everyone involved. The comment contained more insight than its casual delivery suggested. His arrival had indeed created ripples throughout Orario's social ecosystem, professional interest from multiple familias, nickel consultation with specialized experts, operational coordination regarding dungeon anomalies. Whether coincidental timing or causally connected to his reincarnation circumstances remained unclear. Returning to his room, Minato settled into meditative position, focusing awareness inward to examine energy pathways and their current condition. The day's activities had involved significant expenditure, particularly during enhanced monster encounters, yet reserves remained substantial compared to typical adventurer parameters. More significantly, he noted unusual activity within core path. AYS connected to Kurama's residual influence, the energy pulsed with rhythmic pattern similar to crystalline formation's resonance, suggesting active response to environmental stimuli rather than passive presence. The implications warranted careful consideration. As consciousness settled deeper into meditative state, another memory surfaced with unusual clarity. The seal chamber extended endlessly in all directions, its appearance shifting between concrete manifestation and abstract representation as it had throughout their decades together. Naruto stood at its center, no longer the child Who had first confronted the Nine Tails rage but the aged Hokage who had transformed prisoner into partner. So this is how it ends, Kurama observed, massive form curled comfortably rather than trained by gates that had long since dissolved. Not in battle as I always expected, but peacefully after full lifetime. Disappointed? Naruto asked, smile crinkling weathered features. Strangely, no. The fox's expression contained thoughtfulness that would have shocked his former self. Though I wonder what comes next. Biju have always returned to physical world after host's death, but our situation evolved beyond standard parameters. You're worried about being alone again, Naruto observed with characteristic insight beneath casual demeanor. Kurama snorted, though without genuine dismissal. Concerned about appropriate energy distribution, not emotional considerations. Right. Naruto's smile widened, decades of friendship allowing him to recognize deflection without requiring acknowledgement. Well, whatever comes next, we'll handle it like everything else. Together. Kurama's query contained vulnerability beneath apparent sarcasm. Is there any other way we work? Naruto replied simply. The space around them began shifting, boundaries becoming increasingly permeable as physical bodies' functions deteriorated beyond sustainable parameters. Neither fought the transition, acceptance replacing resistance that had characterized their early relationship. One last thing, Kurama rumbled as dissolution accelerated. If opportunity presents itself, if circumstances allow continuation in some form. I know, Naruto interrupted gently. I feel the same. This partnership was worth maintaining, whatever comes next. Their consciousness Egan merging as distinct separation dissolved, energy patterns intertwining beyond individual identification. Not absorption or consumption, but integration. Separate entities choosing unified continuation rather than distinct separation. Until next time, partner, their combined awareness acknowledged as transition completed itself. Minato's eyes opened, meditation concluding as memory solidified into conscious understanding. The final exchange between Naruto and Kurama provided critical context for his current existence, not merely memories transferred during conventional reincarnation, but conscious continuation of integrated awareness that had chosen unified transition rather than separation. The implications extended beyond personal identity questions to practical considerations regarding his unique capabilities. The energy within him represented more than residual influence from previous existence. It contained fundamental essence of both Naruto and Kurama, integrated through deliberate choice rather than accidental transference. This explained the dual-aspected configuration Asfi and Tsubaki had identified, not merely human soul with unusual characteristics, but integrate existence incorporating both human and Biju essence. More significantly, it suggested his capabilities might continue evolving as integration progressed, potentially accessing aspects of both original sources through developing pathways. As he processed these revelations, physical sensations registered with unusual intensity, subtle warmth spreading from core pathways throughout peripheral networks. Energy flowing with increased harmony as conscious understanding facilitated integration. Not painful but transformative, like muscle development following conceptual breakthrough in training methodology. The process continued for several minutes, energy patterns reorganizing with increased efficiency as artificial separation dissolved between aspects previously considered distinct. When equilibrium finally returned, Minato performed experimental channeling, directing energy through pathways with conscious intention rather than instinctive response. The results exceeded expectations. Energy flowed with unprecedented smoothness, response time between intention and manifestation reducing significantly while control precision increased proportionally. More significantly, conceptual understanding expanded. Techniques previously considered inaccessible due to different metaphysical frameworks suddenly appeared potentially viable through modified implementation approaches. Not shadow clones precisely, but energy projection with similar functional parameters. Not Rasengan as originally conceived, but rotational energy concentration achieving comparable effects through different mechanical principles. Not tailed beast manifestation, but controlled access to Kurama's essence integrated within his own. The breakthrough represented significant advancement beyond previous capability parameters, suggesting progressive integration rather than static transfer. His identity similarly crystallized. Not merely Naruto reborn or new existence with borrowed memories, but synthesis incorporating elements from both sources into cohesive whole. As understanding settled into practical framework, sudden pulse of external energy registered, brief but intense, originating from dungeon direction despite considerable distance. The signature matched crystalline formation's resonance pattern, suggesting connection beyond coincidental similarity. Extending awareness beyond normal perceptual limits. Minato detected subtle response throughout Orario, various monitoring systems registering the energy pulse with varying sensitivity levels. The phenomenon had registered broadly enough to trigger multiple detection networks, likely initiating response protocols among organizations tracking dungeon anomalies. More significantly, he sensed distinctive change within his own energy configurate. As though the external pulse had triggered corresponding adjustment. Systems previously operating independently now functioning with enhanced coordination. The synchronization felt neither forced nor artificial, but natural progression following conceptual breakthrough. Understanding crystallized with sudden clarity, his energy integration had somehow resonated with broader patterns affecting the dungeon, each responding to the other in feedback loop that enhanced both simultaneously. Whether his arrival had triggered these changes or merely coincided with independent developments remained unclear. But their connection now appeared undeniable. The implications required careful consideration, particularly regarding potential consequences as integration continued developing. If dungeon anomalies responded to his energy signature, progressive enhancement might accelerate phenomena already concerning multiple familias. Conversely, understanding this connection might provide insights available through conventional monitoring approaches. As night deepened outside his window, Minato formulated appropriate response strategy. The information exchange with Loki Familia offered unity for gathering contextual understanding while controlled disclosure might facilitate cooperative approach to addressing developing situation. Similarly, continued technical consultation with Aki and Asfi could provide implementation pathway for utilizing his enhanced capabilities effectively. More immediately, practical testing would determine specific parameters of his advancement. Old dungeon exploration focusing on energy expression rather than simple monster elimination. The deeper levels would provide appropriate environment for assessment while potentially revealing added ional information about broader patterns affecting dungeon systems. Decision crystallized. Tomorrow would combine technical consultation regarding equipment development with practical capability testing through targeted exploration. The crystalline fragment would serve both purposes: material component for Tsubaki's crafting experiments and resonant focus for energy expression assessment. With approach determined, Minato settled into restorative rest cycle, consciousness maintaining partial awareness as physical systems recovered from day's exertion. Throughout, energy continued flowing through optimized pathways, integration proceeding at subconscious level even as conscious mind processed implications. The convergence between his past and present existence accelerated with each development. Not merely memories providing context for current decisions, but fundamental essence reshaping itself through progressive integration. Not Naruto simply reborn, nor entirely new existence called Minato, but synthesis incorporating elements from both into something simultaneously familiar and unprecedented. As consciousness drifted toward deeper rest state, certainty solidified regarding a mental nature of his current existence. The journey had not ended with Naruto's death but merely transitioned to new phase, partnership with Kurama continuing through transformed expression rather than concluded through separation. Whatever challenges emerged from dungeon anomalies or Orario's complex social dynamics, they would face them as they always had, together, though in form neither could have anticipated. The realization provided comfort alongside responsibility, connection maintained despite transition, commitment continuing beyond conventional existence parameters. Tomorrow would be in practical implementation of theoretical understanding, but foundation remained consistent despite transformed expression. The will of fire, carried forward into new world through unexpected continuation. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Divine Attention. The first rays of dawn painted Babel Tower in hues of amber and gold, its white stone transformed momentarily into something more precious than mere architecture. From his vantage point atop the hostess of fertility's roof, Minato observed the city awakening with methodical precision, merchants preparing stalls, early rising adventurers checking equipment before dungeon dives. Patrol groups from Ganesha Familia changing shifts at strategic checkpoints. 3 weeks in Orario had provided sufficient perspective to appreciate the city's rhythms beneath its apparent chaos. The surface randomness concealed intricate patterns, economic flows between dungeon resources and manufactured goods, social hierarchies determining interaction protocols between familias. Power dynamics governing everything from market pricing to territory access. He had emerged as an unexpected variable within these established systems. The thought would have amused Naruto with his love of disruption. It simply interested Minato as an analytical observation. A presence registered behind him, silent approach that would have escaped notice from anyone lacking his enhanced awareness. Most guests use the stairs rather than roof access, Ryu observed, her tone containing neither accusation nor genuine curiosity, simple acknowledgement of deviation from expected patterns. The perspective provides valuable context, he replied, not turning from his observation. Morning light reveals architectural relationships obscured during normal hours. She sat, led beside him with fluid grace that spoke of combat training beneath service profession. Her posture maintained professional distance while permitting conversation, knees drawn up, arms resting loosely atop them. Gaze directed toward the same cityscape that had captured his attention. You've created significant ripples throughout Orario, she noted after comfortable silence. 4 familia capped. Ains have visited the hostess seeking information about the independent adventurer with unusual capabilities. An unexpected development, he acknowledged. My preference was for gradual integration rather than immediate attention. Some individuals cannot avoid notice regardless of intention. Her observation carried weight beyond its apparent simplicity. Capability naturally attracts and saint in a city built upon hierarchical power structures. The assessment contained truth he couldn't reasonably dispute. Orario functioned as elaborate capability sorting mechanism, individuals and grow-ups categorized according to their utility within established frameworks. His anomalous position as high-capability independent naturally disrupted classification systems designed around familia membership. Has this attention created complications for the hostess? He inquired, genuine concern underlying the question. Something in her expression softened fractionally, appreciation for consider. Asian extending beyond personal interests. Quite the opposite. Increased visitor frequency benefits business operations, particularly when visitors include influential familia representatives. Mia Co. Insiders your residency advantageous despite potential complications. Good to know I'm earning my keep beyond standard accommodation fees. This earns something approaching a smile, subtle shift in expression that would be imperceptible to casual observation. Your regular magic stone exchanges alone would justify preferential treatment. Adding information-seeking visitors simply enhances the arrangement's value. Their conversation paused as both observed a contingent of Ganesha Familia members escorting supply caravan through the northwestern thoroughfare, disciplined formation Sugas. Ting routine security operation rather than response to specific threat. The city's functioning required such mundane protections alongside more dramatic dungeon exploration activities. You have Familia representation scheduled today, Ryu noted, her information network clearly extending beyond tavern operations. Loki's second-tier leadership requested formal meeting at their headquarters. He nodded confirmation. Information exchange regarding unusual dungeon phenomena. Multiple organizations have noticed pattern acceleration without comprehensive understanding of underlying mechanisms. A practical approach, she acknowledged, though navigating familia politics requires different skills than dungeon exploration. Loki's representatives play complex games even when pursuing legitimate objectives. The warning contained more specific concern than typical tavern employee might express toward Patron's activities. You speak from experience rather than general observation. She didn't deny the assessment, though her expression revealed nothing beyond professional neutrality. Orario's social structures create intricate dynamics regardless of individual intentions. Understand. These patterns provide survival advantage comparable to combat capability. Her phrasing resonated with shinobi principles from his previous existence, recognizing political landscapes as potent, chially deadlier than physical battlefields. Another fragment of connection between worlds seemingly separated by metaphysical barriers. I appreciate the perspective, he acknowledged. Navigating unfamiliar social territories benefits from experienced guidance. Something in his response triggered subtle reassessment, her posture shifting almost imperceptibly as internal categorization adjusted. Most adventurers focus exclusively on combat parameters while ignoring political implications. Your awareness of both dimensions suggests unusual background. Different environments foster different survival requirements, he offered. Truth without specific disclosure. Their conversation concluded as naturally as it had begun, each recognizing appropriate transition point without requiring explicit acknowledgement. As they descended from rooftop toward more conventional spaces, Minato noted the developing rapport between them, professional respect evolving toward something not quite friendship but exceeding mere acquaintance. The hostess bustled with morning activity, adventurers gathering for pre-expedition meals, merchants seeking early contracts, various service providers navigating between tables with practiced efficiency. Mia supervised operations from her command position behind the bar, assessing patron distribution and staff performance with veterans' precision. "Ah, there's our roof-climbing resident," she called as they reached ground level. "Got someone asking after you, waiting in the side room." Guild official by the looks, though not wearing standard uniform. Minato exchanged glance with Ryu, whose expression revealed nothing beyond professional neutrality. "Thank you, I'll see to it immediately." The side room provided private meeting space for negotiations requiring discretion beyond main hall conversations. Within, a figure waited with perfect stillness that suggested deliberate control rather than passive waiting, slender build draped in quality clothing that managed expensive appearance without ostentatious display, features combining youthful presentation with eyes that suggested considerably greater experience. "Minato Namikaze," the visitor greeted without rising. Voice cultured with distinctive accent suggesting northern origins. "I appreciate your prompt response to my request." "You have the advantage," Minato replied, remaining standing while assessing potential threat indicators. None registered beyond unusual composure suggesting specialized training. Your name and purpose would provide helpful context. Smil. Appeared. Calculated gesture that conveyed amusement without revealing genuine emotion. "Quite right. How thoughtless of me." He extended hand with precise movement. "Helen, representing interests that prefer discretion regarding formal affiliation." I've been authorized to discuss potential collaboration regarding your unique situation in Orario. The introduction concealed more than it revealed. Deliberate vagueness suggesting powerful backing without specific identification. Minato accepted the handshake with equivalent neutrality, noting the perfect pressure calibration, neither dominant nor submissive. Suggesting trained diplomatic approach. I'm scheduled for consultation with Loki Familia this morning, he noted, taking seat opposite with casual movement that nonetheless provided optimal position for observing both visitor and doorway. Perhaps we could address your interests efficiently before that appointment. Of course. Helen produced small folder from inner pocket, placing it on table without opening. My principal has observed your activities with considerable interest. Solo exploration beyond normal independent parameters, consultation with multiple high-profile familias. Involvement with unusual dungeon phenomena currently concerning various organizations. The summary demonstrated information gathering capabilities extending beyond casual observation, suggesting organized monitoring rather than coincidental awareness. Comprehensive assessment. Merely preliminary observation. Helen's finger tapped folder once before withdrawing. My principal FFERS substantial resources in exchange for exclusive consultation rights regarding your discoveries and capabilities. The arrangement would preserve your independent status while providing access to facilities and information networks beyond standard adventurer parameters. The offer contained careful calibration, acknowledging his apparent preference for independence while offering benefits typically accessible only through Familia membership. The approach suggested sophisticated understanding of his potential motivations alongside considerable resources to accommodate them. A generous proposal, Minato acknowledged. Though I'm curious why your principal maintains anonymity rather than direct approach. Helen's expression revealed nothing beyond diplomatic pleasantness. Some posit. Ions necessitate discretion regarding certain interests. I assure you, formal introduction would occur following preliminary agreement regarding general parameters. The non-answer contained its own information. Whoever had sent this representative occupied position where public association with certain activities might create complications. Among Orario's power structures, few entities operated with such requirements for compartmentalized approaches. I appreciate the interest, Minato replied after appropriate consideration. However, my current arrangements involve information sharing with multiple organizations tracking related phenomena. Exclusive consultation would compromise these developing relationships. Disappointment flickered across Helen's features before diplomatic mask reasserted itself. A principled position, perhaps more limited arrangement might accommodate existing commitments while still providing mutual benefit. Perhaps, Minato acknowledged without commitment. Though comprehensive understanding of your principal's specific interests would be prerequisite for any meaningful discussion. The representative studied him with intensity that belied his relaxed posture. You navigate diplomatic waters with surprising adeptness for someone recently arrived in Orario. Most adventurers would leap at resources being offered without questioning underlying motivations. Different backgrounds foster different approaches to unexpected opportunities. Indeed, Helen rose with fluid movement suggesting physical training alongside diplomatic capabilities. I'll convey your position to my principal. Should circumstances align more favorably in future, communication channels remain open. He placed small crystal on table, communication device similar to what Finn had provided, though with distinctive blue tint. For direct contact should you reconsider or encounter information worth prioritized sharing. Minato accepted the crystal with appropriate acknowledgement, recognizing implied value beyond simple communication tool. Such devices represented significant investment, their distribution typically limited to high-ranking Familia members or T.Os with specialized operational requirements. After Helen's departure, he examined the crystal more carefully. Its construction revealed exceptional quality beyond standard models, with enhanced accuracy features suggesting confidential communication capabilities. The craftsmanship indicated Hephaestus Familia production, though with customization beyond their commercial offerings. Another ECE in developing pattern, powerful interests monitoring his activities from positions preferring indirect observation rather than overt interaction. Combined with previous approaches from identified familias, clear picture emerged of his anomalous position attracting attention throughout Orario's complex ecosystem. He secured the crystal within inner pocket before departing toward scheduled meeting with Loki Familia. Whatever game played out across Orario's political landscape, maintaining awareness of all participants offered better protection than premature alignment with any single faction. Twilight Garden occupied prime territory within Orario's northeastern district, sprawling compound whose elegant architecture belied formidable security integration. Guards positioned at Saint-Rategic intervals projected professional competence rather than intimidation, their equipment and posture indicating extensive training beyond mere presence. As Minato approached primary entrance, he noted subtle surveillance mechanisms integrated throughout surrounding structures, observation points providing comprehensive coverage while remaining sufficiently disguised to avoid casual detection. The security demonstrated institutional paranoia calibrated for effectiveness rather than ostentation. The guards acknowledged his approach with professional assessment, threat evaluation occurring beneath courteous greeting. Minato Namikaze for scheduled consultation, he stated simply. Expected and authorized, the senior guard confirmed after consulting discrete recording crystal. Ria Leo's Alpha waits in Western Conference Chamber. Escort will direct you. The compound interior revealed calculated impression management, public spaces projecting welcoming atmosphere while secure. ITY measures operated beneath aesthetic considerations. Adventurers of various ranks moved with purpose through carefully organized functional areas, their interactions demonstrating hierarchical awareness without requiring explicit acknowledgement. His escort, junior member with professional demeanor suggesting administrative role rather than exploration focus, maintained polite conversation while navigating complex layout. First time visiting Twilight Garden. Most find our organizational approach refreshingly efficient compared to less structured familias. The design demonstrates practical consideration alongside aesthetic elements, Minato acknowledged. Functional prioritization without sacrificing comfort. Exactly. The young man's approval suggested genuine organizational pride rather than rote response. Loki-sama ensures resources serve practical objectives while maintaining appropriate quality standards. No wasted extravagance, but neither unnecessary austerity. The Western Conference Chamber embodied this philosophy, comfortable furnishings arranged for productive discussion rather than status signaling, information displays providing relevant context without overwhelming detail. Refreshments available without distracting prominence. The space functioned as professional working environment rather than performative meeting venue. Within waited 3 individuals, duels whose positioning revealed established hierarchical relationship without requiring formal designation. The central figure commanded attention through presence rather than physical attributes. Slender elven woman whose ageless features belied the ancient wisdom evident in verdant eyes. Flanking her, 2 contrasting figures provided complementary capabilities, a diminutive goddess with calculating expression contradicting her youthful appearance, and Amazon warrior whose casual posture concealed combat readiness beneath apparent relaxation. Minato Namikaze, the elven woman greeted, ice carrying musical quality alongside administrative precision. I am Riveria Leo's Alf, executive officer of Loki Familia. My companions are Loki-sama herself and Tiona Hiryut, senior combat specialist. The introduction confirmed unusual situation. Direct involvement from Familia deity suggested significance beyond routine information exchange. Minato offered appropriate bow that acknowledged status without conveying excessive deference. I appreciate the opportunity for consultation regarding matters of mutual interest. So formal. The diminutive goddess, Loki herself, leaned forward with exaggerated interest. Crimson eyes studying him with intensity belying her casual demeanor. After hearing so many interesting reports, I simply had to meet the independent causing such delight. Full chaos throughout established systems. Her speech pattern contained deliberate contrast between carefree presentation and calculating assessment, performance designed to encourage underestimation while gathering valuable information. An approach Naruto would have appreciated, though for different reasons than its practitioner likely intended. I hope the reality doesn't disappoint compared to exaggerated reports. Minato replied with measured neutrality. Oh, I doubt that very much. Loki's smile contained genuine amusement alongside something sharper. Independent adventurers reaching 15th floor without Familia blessing. Consulting with both Hephaestus and Hermes representatives regarding exotic materials. assisting multiple parties against enhanced monster formations. Such fascinating patterns rarely emerge from mundane origins. The information summary demonstrated monitoring extending beyond casual awareness, specific details suggesting dedicated observation rather than coincidental knowledge. More concerning was depth of awareness regarding his dungeon progression. The 15th floor expedition had occurred during early morning hours specifically to avoid casual observation. Perhaps we could focus on substantive matters rather than performance assessment, Rivria suggested, her tone conveying gentle redirection rather than explicit criticism. Old consultation concerns unusual dungeon phenomena affecting multiple exploration groups. Always disrupting my fun, Loki pouted without genuine complaint. She gestured toward Minato with theatrical resignation. Proceed with boring operational details while I observe for interesting behavioral anomalies. The interaction revealed established dynamic, Loki's performative approach balanced by Rivria's practical focus. Creating functional leadership despite apparent contradiction. Effective partnership rather than merely hierarchical relationship. Our monitoring systems have registered progressive intensification of unusual phenomena throughout accessible dungeon levels, Rivria explained, activating central display that projected three-dimensional dungeon representation. Illumina. TED points indicated incident locations with color coding suggesting classification system. Enhanced monster formations, irregular spawning patterns, environmental modifications beyond normal parameters. The visualization confirmed pattern Minato had observed personally, anomalies clustering within eastern sectors while gradually expanding outward, with concentration increasing at deeper levels. More significantly, the timeline indicated acceleration following his initial crystalline formation discovery, suggesting potential causality rather than coincidental correlation. The distributio N suggests centralized origin point with progressive radiation, he observed, studying the pattern with analytical focus. Though whether representing deliberate influence or natural system response remains unclear. Chiona spoke for first time, her voice combining casual delivery with underlying sharpness. Natural system response doesn't create coordinated monster formations implementing tactica. Adaptations beyond their normal capability parameters. Something or someone is directing these changes. The assessment aligned with Minato's own observations during enhanced monster encounters. Ove witnessed similar tactical coordination during your expeditions. 3 separate incidents below 20th floor, she confirmed. Standard monster types demonstrating unprecedented coordinati. On alongside physical enhancements beyond normal evolutionary parameters. Not merely stronger or faster, but fundamentally different behavioral patterns. Rivria manipulated display controls, focusing visualization on deeper regions. More concerning are environmental modifications occurring alongside monster enhancements. Structural changes, unusual crystalline formations, altered magical properties within established areas. The mention of crystalline formations caught Minato's attention, though he maintained neutral expression. Similar to formations recently discovered on middle floors. Are different compositional structure, related but distinct, Rivria assessed, producing small container from desk compartment. Within rested crystalline fragment similar to his own discovery but with darker coloration and different structural pattern. This sample was recovered from 23rd floor last week. Its energy signature contains similar foundational properties to reported middle floor discoveries. But with progressive modification suggesting evolutionary development. The implications supported developing theory regarding dungeon-wide phenomena originating from deeper levels and propagating upward through connected systems. More concerning was apparent accelerating evolution. If middle floor discoveries represented early stage manifestation, deeper formations might demonstrate significantly advanced properties. Have you analyzed potential applications beyond academic classification? He inquired, studying the sample without direct contact. Extensive testing continues, Rivria acknowledged. Preliminary results suggest unprecedented energy conductivity with selective affinity patterns, responding differently to various adventurer signatures rather than functioning as universal conduit. The description matched his personal experience with resonant response, though without revealing the specific connection to his unique energy configuration. Suggesting potential for specialized equipment development rather than general application. Exactly. Approval colored her tone, professional assessment rather than personal warmth. Which brings us to mutual interest portion of this consultation. Your involvement with similar discoveries, alongside unusual capabilities demonstrating affinity for these phenomena, suggests potential value in coordinated investigation. The approach represented reasonable progression, established information sharing justifying proposed collaboration based on demonstrated mutual benefit. Strategically sound while maintaining diplomatic consideration rather than demanding compliance. I've observed related phenomena during recent explorations, Minato acknowledged. Though my resources for comprehensive analysis are limited compared to established familia capabilities. A limitation easily addressed through appropriate arrangement, Loki interjected, performance momentarily yielding to direct business approach. Twilight Garden maintains extensive research facilities alongside exploration capabilities. Access could be arranged through various affiliation options without requiring full familia integration. The offer contained careful calibration, recognizing his apparent preference for independence while offering benefits typically requiring organizational membership. Similar to Helen's approach, but with transparent identification rather than anonymous backing. Generous proposal, he acknowledged. Though I'm curious about specific expectations accompanying such arrangement. Transparent inquiry, Loki approved with exaggerated gesture. Most adventurers focus exclusively on benefit acquisition without considering reciprocal obligations. Refreshing approach deserves equally transparent response. She leaned forward, performative aspects momentarily suspended. Information sharing regarding unusual dungeon phenomena, particularly concerning crystalline formations and enhanced monster encounters. Participation in specialized expedition teams investigating deeper manifestations. Consultation regarding your unique energy manipulation techniques that differ from standard adventurer methodologies. The expectations seemed reasonable given offered resources, though final element raised potential complications regarding his reincarnation circumstances. Providing technical consultation without revealing underlying metaphysical framework would require careful information management. Reasonable parameters, he acknowledged. Though comprehensive response would require detailed understanding of operational protocols and institutional safeguards regarding information classification. Riveria nodded approval at his caution. Prudent consideration. Full documentation can be provided regarding security classifications, information handling protocols, and jurisdictional boundaries between collaborative research and proprietary development. The response demonstrated professional respect rather than offense at implied concern, recognition that legitimate security considerations operated in both directions rather than merely protecting familia interests. Such approach suggested institutional maturity beyond typical organizational paranoia. I appreciate the thoroughness, Minato acknowledged. Though final decision would require personal consideration regarding optimal implementation approach. Of course, Riveria agreed smoothly. Significant arrangements warrant appropriate deliberation. Perhaps interim information exchange might proceed while formal parameters undergo development. The suggestion offered practical compromise, continued cooperation without immediate commitment to comprehensive arrangement. Professionally reasonable while preserving autonomy for all involved parties. Acceptable approach, he confirmed. I can provide observational data regarding middle floor phenomena, particularly concerning crystalline formation properties and enhanced monster behavioral patterns. The discussion proceeded with professional efficiency, Minato sharing information regarding his discoveries while Loki familia representatives provided context. Tool understanding from their more extensive monitoring systems. Throughout, he maintained careful balance between transparent cooperation and selective disclosure, particularly regarding the crystal's specific resonance with his energy signature. As technical exchange concluded, Loki leaned forward with renewed performative enthusiasm. Boring operational details addressed, perhaps more interest. Personal questions might receive attention, such as how an unblessed adventurer achieves capabilities exceeding many familia-supported veterans. The inquiry probed directly at information Minato had carefully managed throughout previous exchanges. Rather than deflection or fabrication, he opted for partial truth that might satisfy curiosity without revealing reincarnation circumstances. My training developed through unconventional pathways focusing on internal energy cultivation rather than external power acquisition, he explained. The approach differs from standard Orario methodology, i.e. but achieves comparable results through alternative implementation. Internal cultivation. Chiona's interest sharpened visibly. Like Eastern meditation disciplines, I've encountered practitioners claiming similar approaches, though none demonstrating practical combat application at your efficiency level. Related but distinct, he acknowledged. Combining meditative focus with specific physical conditioning to enhance natural energy manipulation capabilities. Riveria studied him with intensified assessment. Such approach typically produces limited results without divine blessing establishing foundation parameters. Your achievements suggest either exceptional natural aptitude or methodological innovation beyond established theoretical frameworks. Perhaps combination of both, he offered without specific attribution. Fascinating, Loki exclaimed with genuine enthusiasm beneath performative excitement. Independent development pathway operating outside established metaphysical frameworks. No wonder Freya's been observing you with such delicious intensity. The casual mention caught Minato's attention despite disciplined control. Freya Familia has expressed interest in these phenomena as well. Not the phenomena, pretty boy. Loki's smile contained mischievous satisfaction at having provoked reaction. You specifically. The goddess of beauty herself has been watching your activities with unprecedented personal attention rather than merely delegating observation to her children. The information suggested additional complexity beyond what he'd already identified. Divine interest extending beyond institutional curiosity about dungeon anomalies to personal attention regarding his specific circumstances. Potentially concerning development depending on underlying motivations. I'm not aware of any interaction justifying such interest, he noted neutrally. That's precisely what makes it interesting. Loki practically vibrated with gossipy enthusiasm. Freya's attention typically focuses on exceptional souls with unique characteristics, which she promptly acquires through divine charm or overwhelming inducement. Yet she's observed you repeatedly without initiating standard acquisition approach. The implication carried significance beyond mere curiosity. Abnormal behavior from established entities suggested unusual circumstances rather than typical interest patterns. Whether representing threat or opportunity remained unclear without additional context. Perhaps my capabilities have been exaggerated through multiple retellings, he suggested. Deliberate understatement rather than false modesty. Perhaps, Riveria acknowledged with diplomatic neutrality that nonetheless conveyed skepticism. Though multiple independent observations suggest genuine anomaly rather than mere exaggeration. Your combat methodology demonstrates principles outside standard adventurer development frameworks, regardless of specific power measurement. The assessment contained professional recognition he couldn't reasonably dispute without appearing disingenuous. Different backgrounds foster different approaches to similar challenges. Indeed they do, Loki agreed with surprising sincerity beneath playful demeanor. Which makes diversity valuable within investigation teams addressing unprecedented phenomena. Your perspective might identify patterns invisible to those trained exclusively within established Orario frameworks. The observation demonstrated genuine insight beyond performative aspects, recognition that different experiential grounds created valuable diversity within problem-solving approaches. Another fragment of wisdom transcending worlds and lifetimes. Their discussion concluded with practical arrangements for UED information exchange pending formal affiliation decision. Throughout, Minato noted the professional competence underlying Loki Familia's operations, their approach combining thorough investigatio with pragmatic resource allocation rather than emotional response to developing situations. As escort guided him toward compound exit, Riveria accompanied them through primary corridors. Her presence suggested additional conversation beyond formal consultation parameters, confirmed when she directed the escort to proceed ahead while maintaining measured pace beside Minato. Beyond institutional interests, she began once sufficient privacy ensured. Personal assessment suggests you're navigating complex situation with incomplete contextual understanding. Orario's power structures create intricate dynamics that often remain invisible until directly experienced. The statement contained genuine concern beneath professional exterior, not merely protecting familia interests but offering legitimate warning to individual potentially facing circumstances beyond their awareness. The approach reminded him of senior shinobi providing guidance to promising juniors facing advanced missions. I appreciate the perspective, he acknowledged, though specific concerns would provide more actionable context than general caution. She considered this with thoughtful expression suggesting care. Full information assessment rather than reluctance to share. Divine interest creates different implications than institutional curiosity. Deities operate according to motivational frameworks often incomprehensible to mortals. Their millennial existences fostering perspective beyond our experiential parameters. Regarding Freya's apparent interest, among others, Riveria's expression revealed carefully measured concern. Unusual phenomena attracting multiple familia attention inevitably draw divine curiosity alongside institutional investigation. When such phenomena connect to specific eye visual demonstrating anomalous capabilities, personal divine interest often follows. The warning contains specific relevance beyond general caution, not merely advising awareness of institutional politics but highlighting divine dimension operating alongside mortal concerns. Another layer of complexity within Orario's already intricate power structures. I'll maintain appropriate awareness, he assured her. Genuine appreciation beneath formal acknowledgement. Though specific guidance regarding optimal response approaches would be welcome. Something in his response earned subtle approval. Her posture shifting almost imperceptibly as internal assessment adjusted. Maintaining independence provides certain advantages when navigating divine interest, as affiliated individuals often CE institutional complications alongside personal considerations. However, isolation creates vulnerability through resource limitation and information restriction, suggesting balanced approach rather than absolute positioning. Precisely. Genuine respect colored her tone, professional recognition rather than personal warmth. Cooperative arrangements with multiple organizations while maintaining fundamental independence offers optimal configuration for your current circumstances. Though implementation requires diplomatic sophistication alongside practical capability. The guidance reaper, essented genuine assistance beyond institutional recruitment attempt, experienced individual providing legitimate advice based on professional assessment rather than merely advancing organizational interests. Such approach deserved equivalent respect in response. I value your perspective, Minato acknowledged with formal bow that nonetheless conveyed genuine appreciation. Such guidance proves more valuable than many material resources. Experience often provides insights unavailable through theoretical understanding alone, she replied with equivalent formality hiding similar sincerity. Safe exploration, Minato Namikaze. Perhaps our paths will cross again under circumstances allowing more comprehensive discussion. The parting contained professional courtesy alongside something approach. Oching personal interest. Not merely institutional representative concluding formal interaction but individual expressing genuine curiosity about potential future engagement. Another connection form. Within Orario's complex social ecosystem, regardless of formal affiliation decisions. As Minato departed Twilight Garden, he considered the consultation's implications alongside Riveria's personal guidance. The information exchange had provided valuable context regarding dungeon phenomena while establishing foundation for potential future collaboration. More significantly, the warning about divine interest suggested additional complexity beyond what he'd already identified. The mention of Freya's observation particularly warranted consideration. Among Orario's deities, her reputation suggested specific interest patterns focused on exceptional souls with unique characteristics. Whether his reincarnation circumstances created configurations attracting such attention remained uncertain without direct interaction. Though the possibility certainly existed given his anomalous energy signature. For now, practical priorities remained unchanged. Continued dungeon exploration focused on understanding crystalline formation properties and their relationship to his unique capabilities. With enhanced integration following recent meditation breakthrough, testing modified implementation approaches for techniques from his previous existence represented logical progression. The middle afternoon left sufficient time for abbreviated dungeon expedition focusing on controlled experimentation rather than extensive exploration. With decision made, Minato adjusted course toward Babel Tower, awareness extended to detect potential observation while considering optimal testing parameters for his evolving capabilities. The 13th floor hummed with subdued energy, ambient magical resonance creating distinctive atmospheric conditions compared to higher levels. Fewer adventurers operated at this depth, their equipment and formation discipline indicating experienced professionals rather than enthusiastic novices. Most acknowledged Minato's presence with professional nods before continuing their own activities. Respecting unwritten protocol governing adventurer interactions within the dungeon, he navigated toward eastern sectors with purposeful efficiency, selecting chamber configuration offering optimal conditions for controlled experimentation, sufficient space for technique implementation, limited access points for defensive security, natural features providing environmental interaction opportunities. The location matched parameters from his original crystalline formation discovery, though without actual formation present. After verifying perimeter security, Minato centered himself within the chamber, focusing awareness inward to access energy pathways optimized during recent meditation breakthrough. The integration between human and Biju essence had progressed significantly, creating unprecedented harmony between previously distinct aspects. Not merely coexisting energy sources but unified system functioning through complementary expression. He began with fundamental implementation, directing energy through physical enhancement pathways similar to basic chakra distribution from his previous existence. The response exceeded conventional parameters, energy flowing with unprecedented efficiency while producing enhanced physical capabilities beyond standard adventurer metrics even with divine blessing. Speed, strength, sensory acuity, all demonstrated substantial improvement compared to pre-integration baseline. More significantly, control precision increased proportionally to raw capability enhancement, allowing fine adjustment rather than merely increased output. The improvement suggested qualitative transformation rather than simple quantitative enhancement. With basic parameters verified, Minato progressed to more complex implementation techniques adapted from his previous existence but modified to accommodate current metaphysical framework. Not identical replication but functional equivalence achieved through different mechanical principles. The first attempt focused on energy projection, similar to shadow clone technique but utilizing different manifestation approach. Rather than physical duplication, he concentrated on energy extension maintaining connection to primary consciousness. The result materialized as luminous projection, humanoid form composed of golden-orange energy with crimson patterning throughout its structure. Not independent entity but extension of himself. Sensory input shared across connection while allowing separate positioning and interaction with physical environment. The implementatee required significant concentration compared to original technique, but provided similar tactical advantages through different mechanical principles. The projection maintained stability for approximately 30 seconds before energy requirements exceeded sustainable parameters, dissipating without residual effect beyond expected consumption. Successful proof of concept despite efficiency limitations compared to original technique. Encouraged by initial results, Minato progressed to rotational energy concentration, adapted Rasengan methodology utilizing current metaphysical framework. The approach focused on contained circulation rather than compression, creating localized energy vortex that interacted with surrounding environment through controlled boundary layer. The manifestation formed above extended palm, swirling golden-orange energy with crimson patterning throughout its structure, rotation creating distinctive visual distortion within contained sphere. Not identical to original technique but functionally similar, converting concentrated energy into powerful interaction potential without requiring external medium. He directed the formation toward chamber wall, maintaining careful control throughout implementation. The contact produced expected results, concentrated energy transferring into target through rotational force application, creating localized impact with distinctive spiral pattern etched into stone surface. Effectiveness comparable to original technique despite different implementation methodology. Each successful adaptation confirmed developing theory. His capabilities represented metaphysical translation rather than direct transfer, original techniques finding expression through different mechanical principles while maintaining functional parameters. Not Naruto's specific abilities replicated exactly, but equivalent functionality achieved through framework appropriate to current existence. As experimentation continued, Minato's awareness registered unexpected environmental response, subtle resonance within chamber walls, ambient magical energy shifting in patterns corresponding to his technique implementations. The dungeon itself seemed to recognize or respond to his activities, adjusting local conditions in synchronization with his energy expressions. The phenomenon warranted further investigation. He focused awareness beyond physical perception, extending sensitivity into metaphysical domain that connected adventurer capabilities with dungeon environments. The resulting impression confirmed developing theory. His energy signature triggered recognition response within dungeon systems, creating localized adaptation rather than merely encountering static environment. Before he could explore this connection further, his awareness registered approaching entities, multiple signatures moving with coordinated purpose rather than random exploration. Not standard adventurer pattern but something different, energy signatures suggesting enhanced monsters similar to previous encounters, their movement indicating deliberate approach rather than coincidental spawning. Decision formed automatically. Maintain position rather than withdrawal. Utilizing opportunity to observe potential connection between his energy expression and monster response patterns. If direct relationship existed between his activities and dungeon anomalies, controlled observation might reveal causal mechanisms beyond coincidental correlation. He adjusted position for optimal defensive configuration while continuing energy projection. He reduced intensity, maintaining stimulus while preparing for potential confrontation. The approaching entities registered progressive proximity, their coordination suggesting communication beyond visual or auditory mechanisms. The first creatures entered chamber with uncanny synchronization, hellhounds moving in formation that suggested tactical awareness rather than instinctive behavior. Unlike standard specimens, these displayed physical modifications beyond normal parameters, bone-white protrusions extending from joints and spine, crimson energy pulsing beneath obsidian fur, ember eyes. Containing awareness beyond typical monster consciousness. More significantly, they demonstrated immediate recognition upon perceiving Minato, not merely identifying potential threat but specifical. Focusing on his energy signature rather than physical presence. Their reaction suggested recognition beyond standard monster perception, as though identifying specific individual rather than merely encountering adventurer. Rather than immediate aggression, the creatures maintained formation at chamber periphery, movements suggesting assessment rather than attack preparation. Additional entities joined initial group, different monster types demonstrating similar physical modifications despite species variation. The gathering created unprecedented scenario, multiple enhanced specimens from different species coordinating without apparent conflict, focusing collectively on single target. Minato maintained defensive readiness while studying their behavior with analytical focus. The RN suggested intelligence beyond standard monster parameters, coordination indicating shared purpose rather than merely coincidental presence. More concerning was apparent recognition factor, their pacific interest in his energy signature rather than general adventurer presence. Decision crystallized. Controlled engagement to verify behavioral parameters without escalating beyond necessary force application. He channeled energy through enhanced physical pathways, creating visible manifestations surrounding his form. Golden-orange aura with crimson patterning similar to what observers had described regarding his soul appearance. The response proved immediate and significant. Enhanced monsters reacting with collective attention shift, their movements suggesting recognition beyond mere threat assessment. Not fear exactly, nor aggression, but something approaching reverence mixed with caution, as though encountering entity beyond their experiential parameters. Before the standoff could progress further, unexpected intervention shattered the tableau, blade flashing through nearest hellhound with precision suggesting extensive combat experience rather than merely adequate training. The creature dissolved into luminescent particles as companion materialized beside Minato with fluid movement belying her slight frame. Yamato Makoto stood in classic combat stance, blade extended, in guard position while assessing remaining monsters with professional focus. Her presence registered as unexpected variable rather than coincidental arrival, deliberate intervention rather than accidental encounter. Coordinated response to energy manifestation, she noted without shifting attention from potential threats. Consistent with reported anomalies throughout eastern sectors. The NHANCED monsters adjusted formation following their companion's elimination, coordination suggesting tactical adaptation rather than instinctive response. Their collective focus shifted to include Makoto alongside Minato. Assessment calculating modified threat parameters rather than merely registering additional opponent. They're displaying recognition response rather than standard aggression, Minato observed. Maintaining defensive positioning while analyzing behavioral patterns. Almost as though identifying specific signature rather than general adventurer presence. Consistent with the oracle models regarding enhanced specimens, she acknowledged. Though practical demonstration exceeds documented parameters, your energy manifestation triggered immediate recognition beyond typical monster perception capabilities. The observation contained accuracy he couldn't reasonably dispute. Whatever connection existed between his unique signature and dungeon anomalies, these enhanced specimens clearly recognized something beyond what standard monsters perceived when encountering adventurers. Further analysis was interrupted by renewed monster activity, the formation advancing with coordinated purpose that suggested unified control rather than individual decision. Their approach maintained tactical awareness, positioning optimized for complementary attack vectors rather than chaotic aggression. What followed demonstrated exceptional combat synchronization between individuals who had never fought together previously. Minato and Makoto responded to the attack with complementary movements that leveraged respective strengths without requiring verbal coordination. His enhanced speed creating openings, her precision blade work exploited perfectly, her defensive techniques varying potential vulnerabilities his offensive focus might otherwise expose. Throughout, he noted her exceptional combat methodology, techniques incorporating principles similar to chakra enhancement from his previous existence. Though implemented through different mechanical framework, her movements contained focused efficiency suggesting lifetime training rather than merely adequate instruction. Blade extensions of physical form rather than separate implements. The enhanced monsters demonstrated tactical adaptation beyond standard parameters, adjusting formation to counter their coordinate defense while maintaining collective functionality despite individual losses. More concerning was progressive enhancement during extended engagement, their capabilities seemingly increasing with continued exposure to Minato's energy signature, as though drawing strength from the very power being used against them. Recognition formed within tactical assessment. Continued engagement created diminishing returns as monsters adapted to their combined approach. New strategy required immediate implementation. Energy suppression, Minato suggested between precisely timed counterattacks. They responding specifically to signature manifestation rather than physical presence. Makoto processed this with immediate comprehension, adjusting her technique without requiring detailed explanation. Synchronized withdrawal toward junction corridor. On 3. Their coordinated movement executed with perfect timing. Simultaneous disengagement covered by final offensive flourish, transition F. ROM combat to strategic withdrawal without creating vulnerable interim phase. As they moved, Minato implemented energy suppression technique, not merely reducing output but actively containing signature within internal pathways rather than allowing ambient manifestation. The response confirmed their theory, enhanced monsters demonstrating immediate confusion as detectable signature disappeared despite continued physical presence. Their coordination faltered without apparent recognition target, formation breaking into individual units lacking unified purpose. Makoto led their withdrawal with directional efficiency suggesting comprehensive dungeon mapping knowledge rather than generalized familiarity. Her movements contained precise economy alongside environmental awareness, professional explorer rather than merely capable combatant. When sufficient distance separated them from the enhanced monster confusion, they paused within defensible corridor junction to assess situation and exchange information. Your intervention was well timed, Minato acknowledged, genuine appreciation alongside analytical assessment. Though I'm curious about your presence at this specific location. Makoto straightened from combat readiness with fluid transition suggesting extensive training. Takemikazuki Familia maintains monitoring rotation throughout eastern sectors following increased anomaly frequency. I was conducting standard patrol when unusual energy signature registered on detection equipment. The explanation seemed reasonable though potentially incomplete, her arrival's precise timing suggesting more specific tracking than general patrol pattern would typically provide. Whether representing coincidence or deliberate monitoring remained unclear without additional information. The enhanced specimens demonstrated unprecedented coordination, she continued, professional assessment replacing potential interrogation. Multiple species operating cohesively despite natural conflict tendencies. With tactical adaptation suggesting shared intelligence rather than merely instinctive cooperation. And specific recognition response to my energy signature, Minato added, completing the observational assessment. Not merely identifying adventurer presence but reacting to particular manifestation characteristics. Makoto studied him with intensified focus, professional evaluation rather than personal curiosity. Your energy projection demonstrated unusual properties, dual aspect configuration with distinctive manifestation characteristics unlike standard adventurer capabilities. Similar principles to traditional Eastern techniques but with implementation parameters exceeding documented exemplars. The observation contained uncomfortable accuracy, her assessment. Identifying key aspects of his unique configuration without requiring detailed technical explanation. Whether representing coincidence or informed recognition remained unclear without additional context. My training developed through unconventional pathways, he offered, partial truth without complete disclosure. Clearly, her tone contained professional respect rather than skeptical dismissal. Though conventional frameworks provide inadequate explanation for observed capabilities, your energy manipulation demonstrates foundational principles similar to sacred techniques preserved within Takemikazuki traditions, but with implementation characteristics suggesting different developmental lineage. The comparison offered intriguing possibility. If this world contained disciplines resembling chakra manipulation principles, perhaps additional resources existed for understanding how his capabilities translated to current metaphysical framework. Potential opportunity for legitimate explanation without requiring reincarnation disclosure. I'd be interested in learning more about these traditional techniques, he acknowledged. Comparative analysis might provide valuable context for understanding implementation variations. Something in his response earned subtle approval, her posture shifting almost imperceptibly as internal assessment adjusted. Takemikazuki-sama Maintai, NS Comprehensive Archives regarding Eastern energy cultivation disciplines. Access typically remains restricted to familia members, though exceptions occasionally receive approval for scholarly exchange. The implied opportunity contains significant potential value. Access to information regarding similar energy manipulation principles might provide technical foundation for explaining his capabilities without revealing reincarnation circumstances. Whether representing genuine academic interest or recruitment approach remained uncertain, though the potential benefit warranted exploration regardless of underlying motivation. I would welcome such exchange opportunity, he acknowledged. Though comprehensive understanding requires practical demonstration alongside theoretical framework. Naturally, Makoto's agreement came with professional certainty rather than mere politeness. True comprehension emerges through integrated approach rather than artificially separated components. RAP's joint exploration might provide practical context for theoretical discussion. The suggestion offered reasonable compromise, continued cooperation without immediate commitment to formal information exchange. Professionally appropriate while preserving autonomy for both participants. Acceptable approach, he confirmed. Though current circumstances suggest prioritizing surface return rather than extended exploration. These enhanced specimens demonstrate concerning adaptation capabilities that warrant comprehensive analysis before continued engagement. Agreed. She gestured toward N. Northwest Passage with confident familiarity. This route provides optimal return pathway while avoiding likely spawn locations for additional enhanced formations. Takemikazuki Familia maintains updat.ed mapping incorporating recent anomaly concentrations. Their ascent proceeded with professional efficiency, conversation limited to necessary coordination while maintaining environmental awareness throughout surrounding passageways. Throughout, Minato noted Makoto's exceptional situational management, her movements containing disciplined precision alongside adaptable responsiveness, attention distributed appropriately between immediate surroundings and broader contextual awareness. As they approached upper levels where standard adventurers operated with greater frequency, she initiated more substantial conversation. Beyond immediate tactical considerations, these encounters suggest concerning pattern development throughout eastern sectors. Enhanced specimens demonstrating progress IV.E adaptation alongside coordinated response capabilities indicates systematic influence rather than random mutation. Consistent with observations from multiple monitoring organizations, he acknowledged. Though underlying mechanism remains unclear despite comprehensive data collection. Takemikazuki Familia's assessment suggests deliberate influence rather than natural system evolution, she explained. Voice lowered despite apparent privacy. The coordination patterns demonstrate purpose beyond random enhancement, particularly regarding recognition response to specific energy signatures. The theory aligned with Minato's developing understanding while raising additional questions about potential connection to his unique circumstances. If enhanced monsters specifically recognized his energy signature, causality might extend beyond coincidental arrival timing to fundamental relationship between his reincarnation and dungeon systems. Has your familia identified potential source for this deliberate influence? He inquired, genuine curiosity alongside tactical assessment. Makoto considered her response with careful deliberation, suggesting information classification protocols rather than uncertainty regarding facts. Preliminary investigation indicates potential connection to sealed entities within deeper levels, ancient presences whose containment may be weakening through unknown mechanisms. The explanation provided general framework without specific identification, information sharing while maintaining appropriate security regarding sensitive details. Professional approach suggesting legitimate cooperation rather than merely gathering intelligence from outside source. These sealed entities, historical documentation exists regarding their nature and containment parameters. Limited information preserved within specialized archives, she acknowledged. Takemikazuki-sama maintains certain historical records predating current Orario configuration, though translation difficulties create interpretation challenges when accessing oldest documentation. The reference to pre-Orario records suggested historical depth beyond what guild archives typically provided to standard adventurers. Another potential value from information exchange beyond immediate tactical considerations. They reached Babel Tower's main floor without encountering additional enhanced specimens. Though Minato noted unusual activity patterns throughout upper levels, adventurer groups moving with heightened awareness, guild representatives conducting environmental assessments at regular intervals. Monitoring equipment positioned at strategic locations documenting magical fluctuations beyond standard parameters. Institutional response had clearly accelerated since his initial observations, suggesting widespread recognition of developing situation rather than merely isolated awareness among specialized organizations. Whether representing appropriate reaction or potential overcompensation remained unclear without comprehensive understanding of underlying mechanisms. As they prepared to exit Babel Tower, Makoto paused with formal acknowledgement that nonetheless contained genuine appreciation. Your combat methodology demonstrates exceptional integration between theoretical principles and practical application. Perhaps continued exchange might benefit both our standing regarding these anomalies and broader implementation questions. I would welcome such collaboration, Minato confirmed, equivalent sincerity beneath professional courtesy. Both regarding immediate tactical considerations and broader theoretical frameworks. Then perhaps you might consider joining exploratory team departing tomorrow morning. Takemikazuki-sama has authorized Speciale Z expedition investigating Eastern Sector anomalies, with particular focus on environmental modifications rather than merely enhanced specimen encounters. The invitation represented significant opportunity, access to organized expedition with specific focus on phenomena directly relating to his developing situation. Whether coincidental timing or deliberate recruitment attempt, the potential benefits warranted serious consideration. I appreciate the invitation, he acknowledged. Though comprehensive response would require additional information regarding expedition parameters and operational protocols. Of course, she produced small scroll from equipment pouch, offering it with formal gesture suggesting official documentation rather than casual information sharing. This contains expedition specifications, departure timing, equipment requirements, and participant identification. Your participation would be welcome though not presumed without formal confirmation. Minato accepted the scroll with appropriate respect for its official nature. I'll review specifications and provide timely response. The opportunity for coordinated investigation certainly holds appeal given shared interest in these developing phenomena. They parted with formal acknowledgement that nonetheless contained developing professional rapport, mutual respect established through shared combat experience alongside recognition of complementary capabilities. Another connection forming within Orario's complex social ecosystem, regardless of formal affiliation decisions. As evening approached, Minato adjusted course toward less populated district rather than returning directly to Hostess of Fertility. The day's experiences warranted careful consideration before engaging further social interaction. particularly regarding enhanced monster recognition response to his energy signature and potential connection to sealed entities Makoto had referenced. His path took him through quieter streets where traditional architecture predominated over commercial development, residential areas housing Orario's established citizens rather than transient adventurer population. The atmosphere provided welcome contrast to Babel Tower's constant activity, allowing focused contemplation without excessive sensory distraction. As he passed small shrine dedicated to minor deity, unexpected sensation registered. Distinctive presence unlike standard Orario residents or typical adventurers. Not merely powerful individual but fundamentally different existence category, energy signature operating according to different metaphysical principles than mortal entities. Divine presence, his awareness categorized automatically. Not merely blessed individual but actual deity operating within mortal realm constraints. Before he could adjust course to maintain distance without appearing deliberately evasive, the presence materialized from shrine interior, female form whose beauty transcended conventional parameters. Physical manifestation so perfect it created momentary cognitive dissonance between visual perception and rational processing. Silver hair cascaded like liquid moonlight around features, combining feminine delicacy with sensual maturity, eyes containing literal silver luminescence rather than merely reflecting ambient light. Her movement transformed simple walking into poetry of motion. Each gesture containing deliberate grace that should have required conscious choreography yet flowed with natural inevitability. Freya. Recognition came without contextual explanation for how he knew. Intuitive certainty beyond rational identification process. She approached with direct purpose belying apparent casual movement, path intersecting his with mathematical precision suggesting deliberate interception rather than coincidental encounter. Her expression contained fascinating combination. Genuine curiosity alongside something approaching excitement, anticipation without typical predatory aspects that might accompany such focused attention. At last we meet directly, she greeted, voice containing musical quality that resonated beyond auditory perception. After watching Rom appropriate distance to respect your fascinating independence. The acknowledgement of observation came without apology or justification, simple statement of fact rather than defensive explanation. Divine perspective operating according to different social protocols than mortal interaction frameworks. Goddess Freya, Minato acknowledged with appropriate bow that nonetheless maintained dignity rather than subservient positioning. I wasn't aware my activities warranted such distinguished attention. Such delightful modesty. Her smile contained genuine amusement alongside something sharper. Though we both recognize artificial humility would dishonor the exceptional nature of your presence in Orario. The directness warranted equivalent response rather than continued diplomatic deflection. I've noticed interest from various quarters regarding my activities, though divine attention represents significant escalation beyond institutional curiosity. Refreshing honesty. Aprov. Al brightened her expression, genuine rather than merely performative. Most mortals attempt elaborate verbal dancing when encountering direct divine interest. Your straightforward acknowledgement vase far more interesting than artificial deference. Throughout their exchange, Minato noted critical anomaly in his own response, complete absence of overwhelming attraction that reportedly characterized normal reactions to Freya's presence. Her beauty registered objectively without creating emotional compulsion typically associated with divine charm effects. Whether representing unusual resistance or fundamental immunity remained unclear without additional interaction. I prefer direct communication when possible, he acknowledged. Though I remain curious about specific aspects of my activities attracting your personal attention rather than merely institutional monitoring through familiar representatives. Freya studied him with intensified focus, not merely visual assessment but deeper perception suggesting divine awareness beyond mortal sensory limitations. Fascinating, she murmured, though whether addressing him directly or merely voicing personal observation remained ambiguous. Completely unaffected despite direct proximity. Not merely resistant but fundamentally beyond influence parameters. The statement confirmed unusual interaction between her divine capabilities and his unique circumstances, not standard charm resistance but something more fundamental operating at metaphysical level rather than merely psychological dimension. I'm not certain what specific effect I'm supposedly resisting, he noted with genuine curiosity rather than deliberate obtuseness. Her laughter carried surprising warmth beneath its musical quality, genuine amusement rather than divine condescension. Another delightful aspect of your exceptional nature. Most mortals experience overwhelming attraction upon encountering my presence directly, an effect I neither create deliberately nor can deactivate within proximity parameters. Yet you stand conversing with complete composure, as though addressing merely unusual beautiful mortal rather than deity whose primary domain encompasses beauty and desire themselves. Quote, the explanation clarified critical aspect of their interaction. Her divine nature automatically generated effects on surrounding mortals regardless of conscious intention. With his unusual immunity representing unprecedented exception rather than deliberate resistance against active influence attempt. An interesting metaphysical anomaly, he acknowledged. Though I'm uncertain whether representing cause for concern or merely academic curiosity. Neither concern nor merely academic interest, she corrected with surprising directness. But genuine fascination regarding unprecedented exception to fundamental principles operating since my earliest manifestation. Throughout millennia, no mortal has remained unaffected by my presence, some demonstrating greater resistance than others. Certainly, but none achieving complete immunity as you demonstrate. The timeframe reference highlighted critical perspective difference, deity measuring experience through millennia rather than merely decades, with corresponding impact on novelty appreciation and situational assessment. What might seem merely unusual to mortal perspective represented unprecedented exception within divine experiential framework. I apologize if my unusual response creates discomfort, Minato offered, genuine consideration rather than artificial politeness. Quite the opposite. Freya's delight manifested through subtle luminescence increase surrounding her form, divine energy responding to emotional state rather than merely physical expression. Discovering genuine exception to established patterns creates exquisite refreshment within existence spanning countless mortal lifetimes. Your uniqueness represents precious gift rather than concerning anomaly. Her perspective contains surprising authenticity beneath divine presentation. Genuine appreciation for novelty rather than merely strategic interest in unusual capability. Whether representing complete motivation or merely component alongside other objectives remained uncertain without further interaction. I'm glad my unusual circumstance provides positive experience rather than troubling complication, he acknowledged. Diplomatic response that nonetheless contained genuine consideration. Though I remain uncertain why specific immunity to divine charm would warrant personal attention beyond momentary curiosity. Freya's expression shifted toward thoughtful assessment, not dismissing his inquiry but considering appropriate response depth given their limited acquaintance. Divine existence contains paradoxical challenge, omnipotence within domain parameters alongside fundamental restrictions regarding mortal interaction. We experience mortal realm through filtered perception, RSE. NTIAL nature constrained to protect fragile reality from unmediated divine presence. The explanation contains surprising metaphysical disclosure, information regarding divine experience rarely read with mortals according to guild educational materials. Whether representing unusual trust or calculated revelation remained uncertain without additional context. Among these constraints, inability to experience genuine connection represents particular limitation. She continued, expression containing something approaching vulnerability beneath divine confidence. When every mortal encounters automatic influence rather than authentic response, relationship remains fundamentally artificial regardless of mutual affection. Your immunity creates unprecedented possibility, interaction-based genuine choice rather than metaphysical compulsion. The disclosure contained profound implication beyond its apparent simplicity. Divine being expressing appreciation for potential authentic action after existence measured through millennia of artificial relationships. Whether representing genuine loneliness or merely novel experience pursuit remained unclear, though the vulnerability appeared surprisingly authentic regardless of underlying motivation. An interesting perspective I hadn't considered, Minato acknowledged, genuine thoughtfulness rather than diplomatic deflection. Though such possibility would require substantial foundation beyond mere charm immunity to create meaningful interaction framework. Naturally, she agreed with surprising solemnity beneath divine presentation. Authentic connection requires progressive development rather than merely technical capability. I merely observe that such possibility exists where none appeared previously, whether developed Ing into substantial relationship or merely representing theoretical potential remains entirely undetermined. The clarification demonstrated unexpected maturity alongside divine perspective, recon. Ishin that meaningful connection required mutual development rather than merely unilateral interest, regardless of power differential between participants. Another surprise from entity whose reputatio N suggested capricious acquisition rather than patient relationship building. Their conversation paused as passerby approached, elderly human whose reaction demonstrated typical response to Freya's presence. His expression transforming from casual observation to reverent adoration upon registering divine encounter. She acknowledged his spontaneous genuflection with gentle kindness that no Neville's contained subtle resignation, automatic response triggering habitual acknowledgement rather than genuine connection. After the citizen continued with worshipful backward glances, she returned at NTION to Minato with expression suggesting rueful acceptance of demonstrated principle. You observe practical example of typical interaction limitation. His response contains no genuine choice, physical reaction rather than authentic appreciation, regardless of my behavior or character beyond mere existence. While I maintain complete freedom to respond based on actual interaction rather than predetermined influence. Minato completed the implicit comparison. Precisely. Her approval contained genuine warmth alongside divine radiance, creating unprecedented interaction potential regardless of specific development pathway. Whether developing toward formal association, informal collaboration, or merely occasional conversation, the foundation contains authentic possibility rather than artificial certainty. The perspective represented surprisingly moderate position from deity whose reputation suggested absolute acquisition approach toward desired individuals. Whether indicating genuine character aspect beyond public perception or merely strategic patience given his unusual immunity remained uncertain without extended interaction. An interesting foundation for potential relationship development. He acknowledged diplomatic recognition without specific commitment. Though immediate practical considerations include ongoing investigation regarding unusual dungeon phenom, affecting multiple exploration groups. Of course, her acceptance came without apparent disappointment or frustration, divine perspective perhaps operating on different timescale than mortal expectation regarding relationship progression. Your activities naturally prioritize developing situation rather than merely exploring interpersonal possibilities. Though perhaps occasional conversation might occur alongside practical investigations, should circumstances permit such interaction. The suggestion offered reasonable compromise, continued communication without immediate pressure toward specific relationship development. Professionally appropriate while acknowledging potential personal dimension beyond institutional interaction. I would welcome such conversation opportunities, Minato acknowledged. Genuine interest alongside diplomatic courtesy. Though my schedule often involves irregular exploration patterns rather than predictable availability. Divine patience encompasses mortal scheduling variations. She assured him with gentle humor beneath formal acknowledgement. Perhaps you might visit Folkvanger when circumstances permit. My residence remains open to those I find interesting, regardless of formal affiliation status. The invitation represented significant status marker within Orario's social hierarchy. Direct access to divine residence typically limited to high-ranking familia members or those with exceptional standing within city governance structures. Whether representing genuine personal interest or strategic positioning remained unclear, though. The opportunity itself warranted consideration regardless of underlying motivation. I appreciate the invitation, he acknowledged. Though comprehensive response would require consideration regarding appropriate timing and contextual circumstances. Naturally, her acceptance came without apparent disappointment despite diplomatic deferral. Meaningful choices require appropriate deliberation rather than impulsive response. The invitation remains open regardless of specific implementation timeline. Their conversation concluded with formal acknowledgement that nonetheless contained developing interpersonal dimension beneath institutional positioning. Throughout, Minato noted the complex nature of their interaction. Divine being engaging with mortal individual outside standard influence parameters. Creating unprecedented relationship potential regardless of specific development pathway. As Freya departed with graceful movement that transformed simple walking into visual poetry, Nato considered the encounter's implications alongside earlier experiences throughout exceptional day. Divine interest from Orario's most notorious deity certainly complicated his already complex situation. Though the immunity she had confirmed potentially provided protection against certain vulnerabilities affecting normal adventurers. More significantly, the interaction had revealed surprising depth beneath Freya's public reputation, genuine appreciation for authentic connection possibility rather than merely strategic interest in unusual capability. Whether representing complete motivatio, or merely component alongside other objectives remained uncertain, though the vulnerability had appeared surprisingly authentic regardless of underlying complexity. Combined with earlier consultations regarding dungeon anomalies and enhanced monster encounters, clear picture emerged of his anomalous position within Orario's complex ecosystem, independent adventurer with unusual capabilities attracting attention from multiple power centers while navigating developing situation affecting fundamental dungeon systems. Not merely outsider observing established patterns but active participant within evolving circumstances connecting multiple organizational interests. As evening shadows lengthened across Orario's winding streets, another memory surfaced unbidden. The most challenging diplomatic situations, Shikamaru explained during council briefing, occur when multiple power centers develop simultaneous interest in single individual whose capabilities transcend standard classification parameters. Traditional alliance frameworks break down when subject maintains independence despite operational integration with various organizations. Sounds troublesome, Naruto observed with characteristic understatement masking genuine concern. For everyone involved. Precisely why anticipatory protocols matter more than reactive responses, his advisor continued. Establishing CL-ER boundaries while maintaining flexible cooperation creates stability within complex systems that might otherwise deteriorate toward competitive escalation. The wisdom remained relevant across RLDS and lifetimes. Establishing clear parameters while maintaining flexible cooperation represented optimal approach for navigating multiple organizational interests without creating destructive competition dynamics. Whether applied to hidden villages negotiating shared resource access or familias investigating dungeon anomalies, the fundamental principles transcended specific contextual manifestations. With this understanding guiding strategic considerations, Minato adjusted course toward Hostess of Fertility. The day's experiences required careful integration within developing situation assessment, particularly regarding enhanced monster recognition response to his energy signature and potential connection to sealed entities Makoto had referenced. More immediately, practical decision regarding tomorrow's expedition invitation required consideration alongside broader affiliation questions raised through various organizational approaches. Maintaining independence while engaging cooperative investigation represented challenging balance requiring careful boundary management alongside genuine collaboration. As Orario's evening activity intensified around him, adventurers celebrating successful expeditions or drowning disappointments in equal measure, Minato reflected on the fundamental nature of his current existence. Not merely reincarnated individual navigating unfamiliar environment, but active participant within developing situation potentially connecting multiple worlds through metaphysical bridges previously considered impassable. Whatever challenges emerged from dungeon anomalies or Orario's complex social dynamics, the path forward required same qualities that had defined Naruto's approach throughout his previous existence: determination tempered by compassion, strength guided by wisdom. Independence balanced against meaningful connection with others sharing compatible values despite different specific objectives. Not Hokage in this world, perhaps, but still fundamentally dedicated to protecting what mattered while navigating complex circumstances with integrity intact regardless of specific challenges encountered along unexpectedly continuing journey. Chapter 3 End. The End. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.